Salute, 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 and welcome. Welcome back to the Black Ocean. Now, so making the deep end with your host, the one and only Great Black Shark. And yes, family, you saw the title and you see the thumbnail. Oh, we got to talk about the Pale Devil in Blackwater. A lot of you may be wondering who the Pale Devil is. Well, in case you are not really up to date on things that are revolving around geopolitics and especially military operations, we're going to be talking about one Erik Prince. Now, those of you that are familiar with him, he runs, a company that used to be known as Blackwater, but it now goes by the name Academi. Several other different names and conglomerations are connected to that now. We're going to be getting into that here tonight. But he recently made some comments on the colonizer end of the game. And tonight's broadcast is going to be something everybody can learn from, but primarily you of the tether class. This is what you better be focused on instead of worrying about foundational Black American freedmen business. We don't control standing militaries that are running around talking about usurping you and destabilizing your nations, okay? That's not us. It's white mommy and white daddy who you break your neck to get up under anytime you get to the Western world, okay? So that's what tonight's subject matter is going to be about. However, a bit of housekeeping. Before we address that, I know all of you, unfortunately, some of you probably experienced it. I didn't, fortunately. But the news about the cellular service going out, let me tell you something, family. If you're over on my Patreon, I've been saying this for a while and posting about it on X. You need to have an alternative means of communication. Now, ladies and gentlemen, especially the ladies, in our community, you need to get you a GMRS radio and a GMRS radio license. The license only costs $35. It covers your whole family. That means if you have a family of 5 and you get a license, it covers everybody in the household. You need to have alternative means of communication because don't sit around. Excuse me. Don't sit around and wait till the last minute and be in an emergency situation and the worst happens. And none of us wish the worst happens, but we have to be honest about the times we're living in. We see how unstable this current government is with this insane president that's in office. You need to be prepared for everything that you can possibly prepare for, okay? Make sure you got your supplies stocked up. Now, I already know this is going to fall on some deaf ears. Those that are not regularly subscribed to this channel, that's fine. I'm going to give you a warning, courtesy warning. Remember what happened during the pandemic when you weren't prepared? For those that this applies to, don't get caught like that again, okay? When life gives you a chance to learn from your mistakes, that's exactly what wise people do, okay? I just wanted to put that out there. Now, let me go ahead and greet my esteemed guests that will be joining us over here tonight. Let me look over here and see who we got. You scroll all the way up. I see Stunt Zed in the building, Mickey Brooks in here, Chief X Ali, Patricia Jenkins, Diesel Mike in the house, out there on the highways and byways. Hope you saved my brother. Netta Bug, what's going on, Netta J? I see you. Black Voltron Reloaded in the house. What's going on, good brother? Out there on the West Coast. CRU Reality, the computer maker and beat maker. That's the man to see if you need custom of either. Derek Park in the building. My good brother in the Chi-Town, #1 killer. I see you, brother. Let's see. I see a Goddess Navi and the Fabulous Fro. Chi-Chi Banana. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. To Stay Woke in the building. Let's see. D Foster in here. Daryl 524. Dat Miller TV. What's going on? And my brother Tony joined us. Salute and welcome to all of you and anybody else that'll be joining us in attendance here tonight. So, family, we don't get straight to brass tacks, but before I do that, I gotta play something that's somewhat of a side note, that doesn't have anything to do with what we're gonna be reviewing here tonight. Some of you probably saw this, but I'm gonna play this and give you my thoughts on it. I thought this was absolutely hilarious. Okay, so we're gonna start this off by playing this clip from everybody's favorite, well, the white supremacist favorite propaganda news network, Fox News, or as I like to call them, false news. Okay, I'm gonna play this, and I want y'all to hear what these folks in the Alabama community think about black people. Because see, we already know the Democrats, they think black people are stupid. So do these right-wing conservatives. I'm not going to even say nothing. I'm just going to play it and let y'all hear it. Then I'm going to give my commentary when we come back.
I was on social media last night. Very interesting. As you see black support eroding from Joe Biden, this is connecting with black America because they love sneakers. They're into sneakers. They love this is a big deal, certainly in the inner city. So when you have Trump roll out his sneaker line, they're like, wait a minute, this is cool. He's reaching them on a level that defies and is above politics. The culture always trumps politics. And Trump understands culture like no politician I've ever seen.
Question for you on that point, though.
Yeah.
Will the people that are excited about the sneakers and excited about Donald Trump, will that translate into them going out and voting?
Just in case you didn't think you heard that right, let's play that there footage one more again, shall we?
And the sneaker thing. I was on social media last night. Very interesting. As you see black support eroding from Joe Biden, this is connecting with black America because they love sneakers. They're into sneakers. They love this is a big deal, certainly in the inner city. So when you have Trump roll out his sneaker line, they're like, wait a minute, this is cool. He's reaching them on a level that defies and is above politics. The culture always trumps politics. And Trump understands culture like no politician I've ever seen.
Question for you on that point, though.
Yeah.
Will the people that are excited about the sneakers and excited about Donald Trump, will that translate into them going out and voting?
So I had to play that twice to make sure that you heard what you thought you heard. Now let me go ahead and address this before we get to the main subject matter we'll be discussing here this evening. White America, let me talk to you. Come close. A little bit closer. A little bit closer. You 232 Tony, get on over here, boy. I need you to hear this. Come on now. Come on, get on over here. Let me say it how we would say it, first of all. White folks, both you Democrats and Republicans, when you sit up on these networks or in your little think tanks, in your corporate boardrooms, and you talk as if you think you know black people, do you know you sound like the dumbest thing, which most of you are, the dumbest thing on planet Earth? You rant and rave, a lot of you, especially white supremacists, about your high IQs. And what I just played you, this idiot, sat up here and said this with such sincerity. Now, let's be clear. There is a small segment of society that would affect. We're talking about the homosexual hood rodent class. Okay, the goofballs that the only thing that they're adept at reciting or knowing about is reality TV, sports, who said what about who, all kinds of entertainment. Those goofballs, the people that only pay attention to that, okay? The rest of Black America, Democrats and Republicans, the only thing that's going to get our attention is wherever the tangibles come from in policy and numbers. Until you're ready to talk business like that, we don't give two shits about who goes and puts out some goofy looking shoes. Oh, well, black people like sneakers. Do you think this will translate to votes? Only amongst the stupid amongst us. But let me put white America up on notice about something. The day of the stupid being the loudest voices are allowed to speak for Black America, that's over. New black media is shutting that down. The black grassroots activists are shutting that down across all age ranges. The stupid shall not be allowed to be our representatives. So now, if you idiots, I don't care which politician, if you're listening to this, if this happens to reach your ears by some odd miracle, if that's the strategy that you're working off, instead of coming to talk to black people and ask what it is that we're saying we're going to exchange for votes, you run off that dumb shit if you want to. Because, see, let me talk now to those of you black people that voted for Jim Crow Joe Biden. You know, when they ran all the highly respectable campaigns towards us to get your booty to the polls, okay, vax that ass up, you know, all the lowbrow, low intelligent bullshit, talking to you basically as if you a damn child. Let me tell you something. When that man hopped out and said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black, and y'all dumbasses that did it, yeah, I got to talk to you this way. And you ran out and did that. Do you understand that that made them people respect you even less? You think about all these other communities now, because see, at the time you can say, well, how you know he ain't gonna do nothing? Well, we've seen how that worked out. His first 4 years, how's that worked out? Look at all the other communities that he's given tangible policies for. Did you see them disrespecting their people with them goofy commercials? Have you ever asked yourselves, bisexuals and conservatives alike, that when they go to talk to these other communities, they come talking business on the table. They come to them like grown men and women. When they come to talk to you, or us rather, they come to talk to us like children. You know, imagine jingling some keys in front of a baby. Jingling, you know, the baby's happy because, you know, a little baby don't know no better. That's how a lot of them act. And let me tell you something. If that's your mindset, I don't want you nowhere near me. And family, I'm making the suggestion to you because you all will do whatever you feel is necessary. If you have people like that fit that description of like a grown baby dancing when somebody jiggles some keys in front of them, you better make, you know, some serious decisions about, do you want that person anywhere near you? Because these are the idiots of our society. For a lot of time, and see, look, let me go further on this before we get into this lesson. I hope that many of you that are subscribed to just this channel and many other new black media spaces are paying attention to how they weaponize the stupid in our community. Okay? They weaponize the dummies amongst us to use against us. All right? So you got to understand that that's a serious consequence. And salute to the good sister Age for the cash up. Thank you very much for that support, my sister. You got to understand that that's not a victimless crime. That harms our community when these idiots get up there, the sexy reds, the blue faces, Sukianas, whatever, and they're talking to them about policies, okay, and things that are symbolic instead of those idiots saying, you know what? Yeah, that's symbolism. That don't really do anything for anybody. They're like, yeah, that sure will. Joe Biden's a good man, Uncle Joe. Yeah, see, we're going to have to add some consequence for that as a community, okay? And that's going to start meaning that wherever these people show up, we're going to have the discipline to say, I don't care what you do, how much I like you playing sports, I don't care how much I like your music, your shoe deal, whatever you got going, your movie that you in. When you do something detrimental to our community, you are a pariah to it. We don't have time to play games with these people, ladies and gentlemen, okay? So that's what I want you to consider. Now, moving right along into tonight's lesson here. Family, you all have seen the tether class running their mouths, okay, about, you know, the things that we have going on in our community. Now, I pause it right here on this gentleman's face because this is Erik Prince. Now, let me give you the Reader's Digest version here. For those of you that are not familiar with military operations or anything involving like geopolitics and conflicts or things of that nature, this right here is a devil, okay? I entitled this broadcast for that very reason. I'm going to say something and all my fellow combat veterans will back me up on this. All of you that have served in any branch of the armed forces, you all know how we despise these bastards, okay? See, let me tell the average citizen something that's never served in the armed forces of any kind. Those that were enlisted when the government, because that's who hired them, and I'm just going to put it out here. I don't give a fuck who's mad. I don't want to get no phone calls from people that I know. I know what I'm saying, and I'm going to say it. I'm not beholden to white daddy. I don't have to clock into nobody's job. You can't withhold nothing over my head, and I'm damn sure not scared of none of these bastards. It's up to my people to tell them the truth from my experience. The reason why the average enlisted soldier in all branches couldn't stand these bastards is because, one, they come in and they get paid a lot higher than the average enlisted person, especially if you just started out. But even those that were, you know, special warfare operators like myself and others, okay, when they come in, they have this arrogance about them. They come from, now some of them, to be clear, some of them are ex-military, some of them are police officers. Basically, there are a lot of white boys that like to play, you know, that have the Call of Duty fantasies. They put them in there, and like, here's the bad thing. The ones that are ex-military, they've been out so long that if you were active, you'd be like, okay, these guys are going to get in the way. Okay, and then the government hired them to do things that regular military couldn't do. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, if you do this, hey, we don't know what happened. We ain't got nothing to do with it. You see what I'm saying? That, look, You better go and get the book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And see, I'm going to tell you something. After this broadcast tonight, if you read that book or if you haven't, a lot of things are going to make crystal clear sense to you by the time I finish breaking this down. But regarding these private military companies, and Blackwater / Academi is the largest in the world. Okay, and let me tell you something. These guys are well funded. If you think that there are not politicians that are sending these guys out to do shit on their behalf, I got 2 bridges to sell you, one in Brooklyn and one in San Francisco at a discount rate, like I always tell you. Okay, these are the cockroaches of military society. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you, look, there's good money in it. I'm not gonna say all of them are like Blackwater. If you're running a reputable company, you can make a lot of money doing contract work overseas. But as far as when they get involved with stuff we got going on, look, let me tell you something. We never trusted these types of sons of bitches that came around us. Because, see, if you're a part of a team and, you know, you got your fellow soldiers' life in your hands, you know each other, you understand how each other works. And there here's come these new booty motherfuckers that are pretty much just, no, let me just call these guys what they are, man. These are mercenaries, okay? You heard me right. These are mercenaries. They work for the highest bidder. You can't trust these guys, man. You know, so one of the most uneasy things in the world would have to be on some type of deployment and you hear that they got them doing some type of work. You be like, okay, get these motherfuckers as far away from us as possible. We got shit to do. We don't trust them. And like, you know, they have an issue with actually following orders, okay? Look, they were pretty much like the fly in everybody's ointment, all right? And any of you brothers or sisters that have ever served, you know what I'm talking about, all right? Can't stand these bastards, all right? So the thing that I'm going to tell you is this. What I'm going to show you here tonight, now that I've gotten that off my chest, don't care who gets mad about it. The thing that I'm going to show you here tonight, though, is this is going to be a lesson to the class again, I'll say, about how these people really feel about you. Because, see, let me go in and spill the beans now on a needle that if you're wise, those of you that are in mostly continental African nations, because that's what the main focus is. And don't get me wrong, they destabilize Latin American nations and Caribbean nations, but Africa is the central focus because all the major resources that run this planet are right there. Let me go in and tell you a little secret. You know how a lot of time we clown about when they say it's the government, it's the government, it's the government. Well, there's some truth to that. Let me tell you something. Some of those corrupt leaders, this son of a bitch is best friends with them. Oh yeah, don't get it twisted. Don't think that he goes over there and he's against every single thing. Some of your puppet leaders are cutting deals with this guy, okay? If you wondering why a lot of your stuff is destabilized, this bastard has something to do with it right here. But you know what? Hey, I'm a foundational Black American freedman. You know, former combat vet. I don't know nothing. I'm just whistling Dixie over here. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to be quiet. Because, you know, they don't like to listen when a black person tells them something, no matter how much experience you have in that. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to let Mr. Prince talk to you. Then we're going to come back and analyze some things.
To put the imperial hat back on to say, we're going to govern those countries if you're incapable of governing yourselves, because enough is enough. We're done being invaded.
Because our own national security risk is at stake.
Exactly.
National security interests are at stake.
You can say that about pretty much all of Africa. They're incapable of governing themselves and benefiting their citizens because the governments there are all about looting and pillaging and lining their pockets and going shopping in Paris instead of actually making their country better.
People on the left are going to watch this. They're going to say, wait a minute, Erik Prince is talking about being a colonialist again.
Absolutely. Yes. Then it's.
So you heard it from Mr. Prince himself. Okay, Erik, you low-life lying bastard, you. Why didn't you tell the people about the little side deals that you make with your smuggling operations that you have going on? Oh, yeah, I'm going here with roller skates on. Look, he knows what I'm saying is the truth. Why don't you tell him about that, Erik? Why don't you tell him about, you know, how you help other, particularly African leaders, set up assassinations? And see, look, let me show you how off-code this tribalism is over there. Some of these corrupt African leaders over there, they will hire these guys to go and knock off their political rivals over there. I'm telling you, fam, you really don't understand how dirty and deep this game goes. What you're looking at on your screen is a conglomerate that works with Academi, formerly known as Blackwater, called Constellus, okay? Now, where this affects you The reason why I want Foundational Black American Freedmen to pay attention to this, let me go and tell you why I have such a beef, in case you hear the vitriol in my voice, against Erik Prince. Remember Hurricane Katrina? Oh yeah, I'm going here, because see, I know what I'm looking at when I see certain things. I remember what you did over there, Erik. I remember that. I remember what you and Blackwater did. You went in those areas. Look, bear me witness to this. Any of you that survived that, if you saw strange guys running around and you know the reports of them putting zip ties on people, that was Blackwater. Yeah, that's right. They were operating here on U.S. soil. You know who sent them in? These white supremacist police agencies that didn't want to really get their hands dirty. See, look, yeah, I tell you what, because I'm getting angry just talking about a lot of that. And a lot of y'all that were survived that, y'all know what I'm talking about. I'll give you another instance. In Chicago, remember during the uprisings, you know they had Blackwater active here on United States soil? Remember all them accounts about them snatching people up and putting them in unmarked cars and driving on? That was these bastards. Yeah, that was them. That was them. Your anti-black racist politicians and your anti-black racist police departments, they will hire these guys also. Oh, yeah. See, I'm finna go ahead and thread a needle since I'm letting the cat out the bag, you know, and don't be surprised if this broadcast gets interrupted or they, you know, take this down. Don't worry. I'll put it on Patreon. It is what it is. We're going to tell the truth. Family, you ever ask yourself why they always talking about, we need more funding. We need more funding. Police funding. You remember Joe Biden? We're not going to defund the police. We're going to fund them. And he did too. Well, in addition to all that surplus military hardware that, you know, they like to break out on black protesters with signs, okay? You know, they don't ever put it out for the mass shooters like the Dylan Roofs and the Peyton Gendrers. Oh, no, damn, send no SWAT team out of them. Some of that extra funding is so they can hire guys like this to do their dirty work, okay? Yeah, that's right. They will hire bastards like Erik Prince to go and do their dirty work. And guess who most of they target? I don't even have to tell you that. If I do, you probably hadn't been on this channel long enough, but stick around. You will learn something. So I'm just letting that be known for our people. But going back to those of you that are in the tether class that's running your mouths about our business, you're going to get a thorough education on who this devil is here tonight. And he's got his sights right now in 2024 on your nations, okay? Some of these presidents, and let me talk to my own code, young continental Africans, okay? Caribbean people as well, but the primary focus is on all 54 African nations. To my young on code continental Africans, I really do feel for y'all. I respect those of you that rock with us. I know many of you, and I understand a lot of you want to make your nations better. You better pay close attention to this broadcast tonight, because a lot of what you see here is going to make sense to what's going on in your country over there. See, a lot of times, if you don't have information, you're confused about stuff because you're standing too close to it and you have limited access to things. What I'm going to show you here tonight, you're going to be like, oh, that's why that was happening. Some of you, and let me give this disclaimer, some of you, what you hear, because I'm aware that, you know, just because it didn't affect me directly, I'm aware that what I'm about to play here tonight might have affected some people in countries that may come across this broadcast. So I'm just going to put it out here. What you may hear is going to anger you because it's probably going to make sense about something that you or a family member experienced if it cost someone their life, okay? So I'm going to play some further things here from Mr. Erik Prince, and I want y'all to pay close attention to this and prepare to take notes, and we'll stop it and give commentary as need be.
It may very well be one of the most controversial companies in our country's history.
Blackwater USA has been called the largest private army in the world.
The jury in Washington convicted 4 former Blackwater security guards in the 2007.
My guest tonight is the controversial founder and former CEO of Blackwater, Erik Prince.
You do admit that Blackwater personnel have shot and killed innocent civilians, don't you?
I disagree with that.
Branded a war profiteer and a super mercenary by his critics, Prince's firm made over $1 billion out of the so-called war on terror. It also highlighted the clear danger of using private contractors on the battlefield. And yet now he's back on the scene, trying to privatize the war in Afghanistan by offering to replace US and NATO troops there with his own private security force. But will handing the war to Prince really help end it? I'm Mehdi Hassan, and I've come here to the Oxford Union to go head-to-head with Erik Prince, a former Navy SEAL and the founder of Blackwater. I'll challenge him on war crimes in Iraq.
Let me go ahead and stop it right here. I wasn't going to say nothing this early, but look. That son of a bitch does not represent that unit, especially for the black folks, that the few black SEALs that made it. We do not respect his ass, okay? We don't respect him, all right? I just got to get that off my chest. I would be remiss if I didn't say that. A lot of guys that I know, good people, would be at me if I didn't say that. But we don't respect his ass, okay? He's not one that we respect, and I just want to let that be known, because a lot of what you about to hear, especially for black folks, okay? A lot of what you about to hear, black folks would never have nothing to do with it. And see, I'm going to level with y'all on something, because I got to go if I let this continue. A lot of times, you know, and y'all know my stance, I don't encourage young people to go into any branches of service at this time. I've explained my reasons on that. But just speaking about all black enlisted people, you know, a lot of times the locals in many different countries, they would rather deal with us, because they know that a lot of those like Erik Prince, you know, the Alabasters, they know they can't be trusted around children. And they know they come over there with their anti-black racism, and they think they're superior to people. So a lot of the average civilians in the other nations, they would rather deal with black folks. And any veterans in here, you can bear me witness on that. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But just to make sure I'm clear on this, that bastard doesn't represent the guys in any of the SEAL teams. He's not respected by the greater majority. Even some white guys don't respect him, okay? But yeah, I'm going to let it continue. I just wanted to get that off my chest.
His plans for a private army in Afghanistan, and his loyal support for President Donald Trump. Tonight, I'll also be joined by Sean McFate, a former private military contractor, former officer in the US Army, and author of the book The New Rules of War. Gaith Abdul Ahad, an award-winning Guardian journalist from Iraq who's covered conflicts across the Middle East. And Colonel Tim Collins, a former commander in the British Army and founder of New Century, a private military consulting company. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Erik Prince. Erik Prince is currently the Deputy Chairman and Executive Director of Frontier Services Group, a Hong Kong-based security and logistics firm. Thanks. Erik Prince, thank you for joining me on Head to Head.
Thanks for having me.
You're back in the news with a new plan to privatize, basically, the US-led war in Afghanistan. But you were the founder and CEO of Blackwater, perhaps the world's most notorious private security firm, which during the Iraq War became a byword for violence, corruption, lawlessness, and yet you've never apologized for any of it.
I think that's an unfair characterization. The company did exactly what the U.S. government asked us to do, which was to protect diplomats, reconstruction officials visiting UN or other congressional delegations. We did more than 100,000 missions. No one under our care was ever killed or injured. And people try to characterize the company as overly aggressive. Less than 0.5% of all those missions resulted in a discharge of a firearm. In an era when you had lots of violence in the capital. Yes. I mean, Baghdad really was the center of gravity of the insurgency. And so we had, 41 of our men were lost in action doing that mission.
So you mentioned there that the US government asked you to do a job and you did it. You mentioned that you lost men on your watch. What you didn't mention is that you also killed a lot of people. You say, percentages is great. Let's talk about individual cases. In 2005, Blackwater guards fired 70 rounds into an Iraqi civilian's car, forcing the State Department to investigate. In 2006, according to leaked Pentagon documents, Blackwater guards fired indiscriminately at Iraqi civilians, killing, among others, an ambulance driver. In 2007, Blackwater guards shot and killed 14 Iraqi civilians in what's been called the Nisour Square Massacre, or Baghdad's Bloody Sunday. That is the record that a lot of people around the world remember when they hear the name Blackwater.
Sure, and when you do 100,000 missions, it's easy to take some things out of context. But remember, you had many thousands of insurgents actively trying to kill Americans, and not just American servicemen, but the most newsworthy Americans there, diplomats. And when the State Department asked you
but
to
the people
drive
I'm mentioning weren't insurgents. You killed at Nisour Square. Your men killed a mother and son on their way to an appointment, a doctor and her son. They killed a 9-year-old boy, shot him in the head.
Sadly, the insurgents don't wear uniforms.
Let me stop this piece of shit right here. I have to take the time to speak up for combat veterans on this, okay? Both active and retired. Especially those that make it to like any type of special forces branch. One of the things that we prided ourselves on, for those in my case that are retired, we prided ourselves on making sure that we had accurate intel on who to engage and who not to engage. If you are there and you in your right frame of mind, you're not over there with the attitude that, because I'm going to call it what it is, the white supremacists have. See, for those of you in the tether class in the Middle East and other these places like this, they call you sand niggas. I'm just going to be graphic and blunt with my language here tonight. The way these private military guys talk when they're around themselves, and some regular military, I'm not going to lie about that either, but they already look at you as like, okay, yeah, your life don't already mean anything. Everybody's an insurgent to them. So now, see, the way that works is if you have accurate intel, you know exactly what to deal with and where to go to make sure that you're not hitting civilians. Sometimes that does happen, but for the most part, if you're dealing with guys that are well-trained professionals, very rare that you even come in contact with them. In fact, if you over there and like you're working with some of their government officials, what a lot of times having good relations with the people is you let them know that, hey, look, XYZ area ahead of time, you let their people know that, hey, have them move away from this before we go to do any given thing. This piece of shit doesn't care. And see, that gives the regular guys a bad name if you don't separate yourself, because see, you got to understand something. When you travel overseas and we're dealing in the military capacity, they don't know who's who. They think those guys are with the regular people, and whatever the fucked up shit they do, like what they're just talking about here, the guys that didn't have nothing to do with it get blamed. And see, it's like it's a messed up situation because they're not under our command. They don't even answer to like the regular guys in operation because they're private military contracted by the government. And most enlisted people are like, okay, look, man, I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of the higher brass, especially at the time, during my tenure, they would tell you, look, if you bringing them in, don't send us because they fuck shit up. They fuck shit up. You talk about bad press. These idiots, these goofballs over here, they can't do what the regular brothers and sisters that have been trained to do. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying for black folks, especially because I'm just going to be honest, I don't care who gets mad. Just like with everything else, black folks do most of the heavy lifting in the military. Everybody knows that. I don't care who get mad. I know what I saw. I know it's the truth. But now just applying it to the broad stroke of everybody, okay? When it comes to certain operations, like, what they're describing here, what they had to do, see, I guarantee you what it was is they're just thinking about, okay, get this done as fast as possible. If it's collateral damage or casualties, don't care as long as none of us get hurt. Because they don't see these people as human. And see, for those of you that are over there in these countries, and you always trying to talk about black people that they coming out spaces trolling, calling us all kinds of names, we not the ones that's doing what the Erik Princes will do. And if you think I'm wrong about that, I'm going to let him say it to you out of his own mouth. And you tell me if this sounds like a man that has any remorse for a lot of things he's done, which is well documented. Let it continue.
Would drive ambulances filled with explosives. They would drive.
So your men thought they were shooting at insurgents?
A car bomb doesn't give you much time to decide.
There was no car bomb at Nisour Square in 2007.
Actually, right before the Nisour Square event, there was.
Not at Nisour Square, there was no car bomb.
Excuse me. Less than 5 minutes before that event happened, there was a large car bomb that went off where there was a protective team of ours protecting a USAID official. And sadly, that car bomb went off. The team decided to move through there. And a support team went to block the traffic circle so that the fleeing team could move through smoothly and not be ambushed. When the intelligence provided by the State Department and the U.S. government says, be on the lookout for a white Kia, okay, and all the other cars in the traffic circle stop, except for a white Kia, sadly, sometimes the guys have a split second to make that decision.
Of course, and Blackwater say the white.
Let me stop him again. See, I'm going to be stopping this a lot because some of these lies and stuff that I'm hearing him talk about, and see, much respect to the interview, but he doesn't know the right questions to ask. He's going to do a good job, about as good a job as a civilian can do. But any of us that understand what we're looking at from experience, let me tell you something. See, Erik Prince and the guys like him with these private military companies, if you work with people that are already, look, let me make this make sense, because I don't want this to go over the average person's head. Let me explain it this way. Say you're a master mechanic, right? Somebody that's been on the job 15, 20 years, okay? We're going to use this analogy to make this make sense across the board. Okay, now, you've been working on cars to the point where, hey, you got everything memorized. You don't need nobody to tell you nothing. You can train people, okay, and teach them to come up to your level or at least get close to it, all right? And pretty much anybody that comes under you as an apprentice, they're going to learn how to do things the right way, all right? Now, imagine some college graduate that comes in with a degree, okay, got a master's degree or whatever, but they come in, or let's say a certified mechanic, okay? They got that certification, but they don't have the work experience that you have. Now, everybody in this chat room, what do you think will happen if this apprentice with the certification comes in with no work experience, just what they learned in the classroom? Do you think that new person that's coming in, okay, that new student rather, coming in is going to be as good as the person that's got 15, 20 plus years experience? Anybody in here think that? How y'all think that would go? Now, sure, there could be some exceptions to the rules, but on average, how do y'all think that would go? Because I'm going somewhere with this. I'm using this analogy to make what I'm about to say stick. You see what I'm saying? Exactly. I'm looking at the chat room. People, nope. Exactly, okay? So now you imagine in the case of these private military companies, if you've got a unit that's been deployed in a region for a specific amount of time, they've got all the intel on like how things are set up. They've learned the culture of the area, know what to look out for. You got intel on like, okay, what you're going to be dealing with as far as any type of external threat. Don't you think that a smart person would say, okay, yes, I've been contracted by the government to do this, but let me go and get the intel from the commanding officer from the United States forces that are over here so that we can make sure that we don't ruin anything, okay, that's already underway. And one of the main things that if you ruin, and every soldier knows this, I don't care what branch of the forces you're in, armed forces you're in, if you worked hard to build up a decent rapport with the civilians and then some idiot from a private military company comes along and does something stupid, insults the people, or, you know, heaven forbid, kill somebody that don't have nothing to do with what you over there to do, now that they looking at you like, hey, we don't trust none of y'all now. So whatever help you would have had, and trust me, that does come in handy when you thousands of miles away from home, whatever help you would have had, that's gone now. You on your own. Because when in Rome, you do as the Romans do. You will never know a person's homeland better than they know it. I don't care how much training you've had. If you got people that's already there that can say, hey, look, over here, might want to, you know what I'm saying, set up a perimeter over here. I mean, they've got this going on over here. They got connections over here. You will learn things that you would not ordinarily have access to if you have a good rapport with the civilians in the area. The problem with white supremacists like Erik Prince, they don't respect nobody. You can't do that kind of work that way. So a lot of times when they come in there, they fuck up things that were already underway. That's why they're so hated. I'm not going to say all of them are like that, but the greater majority, okay? To be honest with you, you sending in something like Academi or Blackwater, that's going to be, look, that's, man, I'm trying to measure my words here. I'll say this. No commanding officer like, yeah, we got these guys over here. You're like, oh, shit, here they come. You know, where they overpaid ignorant asses, man, a lot of them. And see, it's like the surprising thing, you know, which is shameful to me, I get it. You know, they do it for the money, but the people that are actually ex-military that work with Erik Prince, they understand how them guys was looked at in private military companies before they joined. So it's like, if you messed up to the point that that's what you got to do to get your bag, man, you know how we look at y'all, man. So I'm just, you know, I'll leave that there. But I'm just making the point that, you know, when Erik Prince and them guys jump over there, a lot of times they don't have accurate intel because they don't really, you know, coordinate with like the region's commanding officers. And wherever they send them, you understand that there's somebody there in the United States that get in touch with. Okay, let me go extra here, because see, I know what a lot of the vets are thinking. I'm gonna cover all the bases with this. Let's just say, because I get it, you know, there's that tension there because we feel how we feel about them. They feel how they feel about us. Okay, fine, no problem. You don't have to come to us. You can go to the embassy in the area, okay, and get the information from them. That's something a lot of people don't know. They can go and say, hey, I'm here on behalf of the United States government, been contracted to do X, Y, Z. I need to speak to an official and get intel sent to me. You know what I'm saying? You don't even have to see us like that. You know, these idiots won't even do that. They won't even do that. So I'm going to let this play. And I want y'all to just take a listen from those of you that are particularly from African nations to the way this man is going to talk about a lot of what you hear tonight. Let's let it continue.
White Kia stopped. As you well know, because you've discussed this far more than I have, all of the eyewitnesses there say that there was no white Kia heading towards you. The US colonel who turned up on the day said that there was no enemy activity involved. He said it was a criminal event and an excessive shooting. A US court of law in December prosecuted one of your men for first-degree murder for killing Ahmed Rubai and his mother at Nisour Square.
Yes.
And hold on, let me finish. 3 other men were prosecuted for manslaughter. 4 of your men, murder and manslaughter, in not Iraqi courts, US courts.
That's right. They prosecuted them 4 times, and they finally got a conviction. The first time he was thrown out for prosecutorial misconduct.
Guilty. They found him guilty.
No. The first time he was thrown out for prosecutorial misconduct. The second time it was overturned. The third time it was a mistrial. The federal government finally got them in a DC jury on the 4th time they tried.
Is a DC jury not a legitimate jury?
I would say a jury of your peers does not really compare to the rest of America. No, that's
okay. Okay, so some juries are legitimate, some not, like so-called judges.
Let me go ahead and explain to the average civilian what happened, the reason why they got off those 3 times that he mentioned. These guys are some of these politicians in both parties, by the way. These guys are some of these politicians' best friends, because when they want some dirty work done somewhere, okay, in one of these nations that they're trying to destabilize, or, you know what, let me go ahead and put it all the way out there. They pick up the book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and the jackals that are mentioned in there, they're talking about the Erik Princes and the Blackwaters, okay? What a lot of times the politicians sitting over here, nice and comfortable in their little offices, okay, with their little, you know, well-groomed suits and haircuts that ain't gonna never go bust a grape at nothing. They'll use these guys to go strong on people into forcing them to sign trade agreements by sabotaging certain things in their nations or what have you. Oh, yeah, it's a dirty game. Let me tell you something. And I'm going to put this out here, too. If you think that corporate America doesn't hire Blackwater to do certain things, because I'm just going to call it what they've been known as, Academi, Blackwater, whatever you want to use, you crazy. They absolutely will hire them to do things and destabilize certain things in other regions. I'll give you an example. Some of these corporations over here will hire these guys to go and sabotage their competition abroad. And when I say sabotage, y'all don't understand. I'm not talking about running over there and doing something in broad daylight. I'm talking about all kinds of things, man. Industrial espionage, okay, infrastructure sabotage, you name it, these guys will do it. They are the cockroaches of the military world. I have no respect for them at all, okay? So the reason why he got off like that, a lot of his buddies, you know, hey, they get little favors from politicians, but apparently the reason why they got them, somebody in DC wasn't having it, and they were like, you know what, nope. We know what you did. You're going to be punished for it, because that's the right thing to do. And look, I don't have my cape on for this government at all. I really don't. Okay, especially by the way they treat us. I'm just speaking from the standpoint of somebody that understands what he's looking at. And I understand when this weasel is lying, the stuff that he's leaving out, you know, and lying by omission. Okay, because see, look, I want you to study how he weaves around these questions, because a lot of you have heard white supremacists talk like this and never really thought about it too much, okay? I want you to study this, because, see, this right here, this is the template for how they deal with you in your face when they're gaslighting you, okay? Let's let it continue.
I've heard that language before. But they were prosecuted for murder and manslaughter. Do you have any regrets for the people who died? A 9-year-old boy shot in the head, wasn't an insurgent?
Of course we did. Of course. We hired, as the company, we hired the prosecutor that prosecuted Saddam to go find each of these families, to pay Salacia, to make amends as best as possible.
Did you ever reach out to them?
Did I personally?
Yeah.
I haven't found all of them, but we certainly apologize to the ones I've had contact with.
And it's not just these killings.
No, you didn't, Eric. No, you didn't. And you never would. You never. Look, let me tell you something, right? Listen to how he's sounding. Oh, when we reached out to the families to offer to pay them, like, okay, you killed their loved one. There's no amount of money that's going to bring them back. See, let me address this sick mindset. And I'm going to go ahead and call it down the middle. This is something that a lot of my, current Black enlisted people listening to this and retired Black enlisted people listening to this. This is the problem that you often have, unfortunately, with some of these guys in the regular military, but definitely with these private military companies here. They have this mindset about them that they think that everybody can be bought off like in the Western world. Y'all know on this channel, many times I've told you that there's a vast difference between the Western world and the Eastern world. I'll give an example about what I mean about they think everybody can be bought off or paid with money and they'll just act like people here in the Western world. The reason why it was so hard for them to find Osama bin Laden was because he was in Pakistan the whole time in Islamabad. But see, what a lot of people were trying to tell those idiots at the time that was looking for him, the reward, nobody's going to take that reward because of what he meant to the region. See, you got to, let's break this down. This isn't caping for Osama. What I'm saying is I'm talking about this in terms I want everybody to listen to and tell me if it doesn't make sense. If you got somebody like Osama bin Laden, who was a very wealthy man, he had businesses here in the United States, all over the place. I'm talking about stuff that you wouldn't even think. This man had honey companies, all kinds of stuff. I mean, stuff that you wouldn't even think. Underwear companies. I mean, you name it, he probably had a business in it. If you got somebody like that, especially overseas there where he was in Pakistan, one of his major money makers, Osama, at the time, was construction. Now, if you don't have a job and you poor and this guy and his network is coming there making sure you keep your lights on, putting food on your table, you really think a lot of people was going to take a reward and turn on him? Because, see, let me tell you what would have happened in the Eastern world. They don't deal with snitches like a lot of people do over here. You snitch over there on somebody that's helping their community, at the time like an Osama, they're like, okay, Osama ain't going to have to do nothing to you. We got this, okay? You gonna go take money from them, the United States, that don't care nothing about. I'm just talking how they would talk, okay? They're like, you gonna take that money from them that don't care nothing about us? Tell you what, you better take it and move because you ain't gonna be able to stay here because we gonna know who got the money all of a sudden. Because look, they know each other over there in these countries. They know who's poor. They know who come from wealth. If all of a sudden you pop up with the bag, you run around flossing, they're like, yeah, we got something for you. It's gonna be a couple of stones hurled at your damn head because they look at you as a traitor. Now, good, bad, right, or wrong, I'll give them props for staying on code. The only way that they caught Osama was his courier made that mistake with that damn satellite phone, and yeah, the rest is history. But as far as that reward, somebody dropping a dime on it, that wasn't gonna happen. That wasn't gonna happen, because I mean they can't be bought off like that in the Eastern world. Very few of them can when it comes to certain individuals like that. Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear. But see, your Erik Prince's. The reason why he was saying that, well, we offer compensation, all that, people don't think like the West does over here. And see, all of my Black, soldiers that are enlisted in any branch, y'all know that we do a lot better with diplomatic engagement with the civilians on the ground because we know how to talk to people, okay? That goes a long way. And a lot of people don't understand that, especially when you deploy. A big part of you doing your job the right way is being able to be an effective communicator with people. Okay, but you can't do that if you got some type of vitriol towards them. And see, let me tell you something, dude. Y'all know this for a fact, and I'm speaking to like enlisted and former enlisted. You know the little jokes that they would make, and then all of a sudden they get quiet when you come around because they didn't want you to hear that. You know what I'm saying? See, when they by themselves, all these little anti-Black racist jokes and all that stuff. See, I wish I could get a tape of some of that stuff and play it for all these different other groups that be calling us Jaireers and IBs. I'm like, do you understand what these people like Erik Prince call you when they're in confidence with one another? They don't have no idea. Maybe what I'm playing here tonight will give them a clue, though. Let's let it continue.
And these killings that are documented, It goes beyond just guards, as you know. Blackwater got billions of dollars in U.S. government contracts.
Not billions.
More than $1 billion in U.S. government contracts during that period.
Over 12 years.
And yet a scathing U.S. State Department investigation found that Blackwater, quote, was overbilling the State Department and manipulating personnel records. Its guards were partying, drinking, and even crashed an armored car and saw themselves as, quote, above the law. Pretty damning. The U.S.
Now you see why I feel the way I feel about this son of a bitch here, and why other enlisted members feel the way we feel about these private military companies. They basically overcharge the government for stuff. They're not as well trained, and the ones that are former military, they out of shape when they come in there. Okay, they're not, the best shooters, so they do stupid things. And then sometimes that bleeds over into people that are not having anything to do with that private military company, that are regular military. It bleeds over on to us. Okay. It did. A lot of that happened if those idiots were anywhere in the vicinity. Okay? So everything that the reporter is saying about that incident, I got to give him kudos again. He did his homework on this. He's not off the mark at all with these things that are documented. But when you got politicians in your back pocket, you can keep a lot of that stuff out of the press. But see, those of us that understand from experience, we know what happened. We understood, because see, these guys have been a problem for a long time, man. They've been a problem for a long time. And I want you to listen to how he gets ready to try to rebuttal what he just asked him about him, what he told him about. Pay close attention to this.
The State Department is saying this about the company they're giving contracts to. Overbilling and manipulating.
We never paid any fines for anything like that. That's a fact.
You paid fines for a lot of things.
The only thing we paid a fine for was an ITAR violation. I'll give you an example.
And sorry, did you say the only thing you paid a fine for? You paid $7.5 million fine in 2012 to settle 17 criminal charges. You paid a $42 million settlement to the State Department in 2010 for illegal arms sales.
2012, I'd already sold the business. I sold it in 2010.
But the cases go back beyond 2010. The criminal charges related to all sorts of things that went back years, including South Sudan. You broke U.S. sanctions to try and sell weapons to South Sudan.
No, there's no weapons in South Sudan.
There was a proposal on the table. You never put a proposal on the table to Salva Kiir's government worth $100 million.
Actually, the issue there was a satellite phone.
So you did put a proposal on the table to Salva Kiir's government, which was under U.S. sanctions?
What the State Department complained about then, that was back in 2005.
Okay.
Was
my point is,
a very dangerous satellite phone, the same thing you can buy in Heathrow duty free.
Okay, we can argue about the fines.
Let me stop it right here, because I know what he did. He's not fooling me. What you did, Eric, you didn't do it personally, but you got someone over there to do it for you. That's how that works. And that goes back to what I told you about a lot of those puppet leaders being on the take. See, it's similar to money laundering. Yeah, well, I'm going there. I'm going to put it all out because I want you to know what type of despicable son of a bitch this is, and what our government over here is complicit in. The reason why the United States no longer has the respect that it did around the world, a lot of what this idiot has done is starting to come out. Okay? It's really starting to put a stain on that fabricated, propagandized image of the United States being, the saviors of the universe. And we talking about the white folks that run the government. Okay? But see, the thing with Erik Prince here, what he's talking about, and trying to act like he didn't have nothing to do with it. Oh, yes, that happened. The reporter, he did some digging to find that. But see, this is a professional liar and a pathological liar that he's talking to. So he's good at evading things. He did everything that he said. He just used some of the puppet leaders to help him out and some of the flunkies. Okay, that's what happened with that. And I got to make this statement. The other reason why a lot of, enlisted people can't stand them, you heard the commentary about them overcharging the government. They'll pay whatever they ask too, because it gives them plausible deniability with certain things that they want to have done, but they won't even give the regular enlisted a tenth of that money. You have to be enlisted for years and years to get anywhere close to what they'll go and give these private military companies off the gate. So, yeah, you can call it pocket watching, but I'm going to tell you why it matters. They're getting paid more than the regular enlisted people, and they're not anywhere half as good as we were. They're just not. Think about any of you that's on a job, okay, and then you've been there, you got all the experience, you practically make that place run. And then they bring somebody in that fits the description of what I said earlier in the broadcast, somebody with a certification or a degree that doesn't have half of your experience, if at all, and they pay them a lot more, and insult to injury, promote them as your supervisor. Boy, I'm so angry I can barely get it out because y'all don't understand the disgust I have for this piece of shit right here. But again, just imagine them paying them more than you and then saying, hey, you know what? We're going to bring little Billy in here with no experience and his little fresh out the presses with ink and even dry degree. And this is your new boss. Imagine how you would feel, okay? So just maybe that'll help explain why I can't stand this bastard here. I'm going to let the reporter continue, and we're going to further break things down. Y'all going to learn a lot over here tonight.
Just deal with this report. The US State Department said you were manipulating personal records, overbilling the State Department, and your guards were partying, drinking, and even crashed an armored car. That was a State Department investigation in 2007.
Look, we employed thousands of people. And I would never say that the men were perfect. We didn't employ angels. We employed veterans who volunteered to serve their country again in a very dangerous place. And like I said,
you employed fuck-ups. And a lot of times, some of these idiots were asked to borrow some of the vehicles from your company at the time. Oh, yeah, they would actually have authority to use some of our stuff and go and fuck it up. And then guess who gets blamed for it? Guess who doesn't get blamed for it? Give you a hint. Not the people that, you know, that's got the large lucrative government contract. They don't get blamed for it. The commanding officer that gave them permission to use it gets blamed for it. That's how that goes. Let it continue.
41 of them paid the ultimate cost, and hundreds more were seriously wounded.
It's a problem when you say we didn't employ angels, we employed veterans, but right now you want to do it all again. That's the problem, is it not?
Well, here's the thing. After 17 years of war, okay, where the United States is spending more than the entire UK defense budget just this year and still losing in Afghanistan, I think it's time to look at a different way.
So I want to talk about Afghanistan, but just before we get to your Afghan plan, I just want to get to what drives you when you kind of come up with these plans to do private security, especially in a lot of these Muslim-majority countries, because you yourself have referred to the people your men were fighting in Iraq as barbarians who crawled out of the sewer. You say in your memoir, these were the chanting barbarians American troops had been sent to liberate?
Sure. If people that think it's okay to drive a car bomb into the middle of a square, into the middle of a marketplace, while to attempt to kill an American, and in doing so, they kill dozens and dozens of civilians, absolutely that's barbaric.
Which is true. I think if you referred to terrorists, you called them whatever you want. But you said these were the chanting barbarians American troops had been sent to liberate. You weren't sent to liberate terrorists. Sounds like you're talking about Iraqis.
And he was. Yeah. See, didn't I tell y'all was going to learn exactly how these white supremacists think over here? And see, this reporter, he is spot on. And if you think he's not right, let me tell y'all something. What I've always taught y'all on this platform. Right now, where I got it paused, take a good look into Erik Prince's eyes. See, if somebody's accusing you of something that's not true, you don't have that scornful, vengeful look that he has on his face. He knows what this reporter said is the truth because that's how they talk about those people overseas. And let me tell y'all something. Those of you from Middle Eastern nations, from continental African nations, Latin American nations, this right here, he's representing how the average white supremacist American, keyword, white supremacist American, feels about you today. So while you targeting us, Foundation of Black American Freedom, we Jaireers and Abids and all these other stuff, this guy is representing what his community actually thinks about you. Because see, kudos again to the reporter here that's interviewing him. They were not sent to liberate terrorists. So common sense would tell you that he's talking about the average person. Now, if you're talking about the suicide bombers, yeah, you're damn right, them barbarians. Motherfuckers killing the innocent kids and stuff like that. Nobody is going to co-sign or defend them. But the civilians don't have nothing to do with that. See, it's just like over here, the average civilian can't really control, though we're supposed to be able to, you can't really control what your government decides to do. You really can't. Not the average person, okay? Not by themselves, especially. Now, we get on code and numbers, that's a different story, okay? White America, just like you ran over there with January 6th, y'all don't get on code for the right things, okay? But I'm going to leave that alone. That's a whole nother broadcast for another day. Regarding what we're talking about here tonight, though, this attitude that he has as if their lives are not worth anything. See, you know what? This is something that I want to show y'all. And I wish I could get away with playing it on YouTube, but I can't. So what I'm going to have to do is post that on Patreon. I'm going to have to post that on Patreon. Because, like, even if I played the audio from that, you would be like, oh, my God, this is how they think? Tell you what, for those of you who subscribe to my Patreon, after this broadcast is over, be looking for something to post over there. And when you hear that, you're going to be like, damn, GBS, I see what you're talking about. And what you're going to hear saying it, I'm just giving you a heads up now, it's going to be one of these guys that work for them damn private military companies. When you hear what he says, it's going to turn your damn stomach. But as far as what we're dealing with here tonight, we're going to get back into it and further break down these lies that this serpent is telling.
Sir, look,
your words from your memory.
The decision of Iraq.
Please.
The U.S. decision to go to liberate Iraq from Saddam Hussein, who did a lot more horrid things than we can even speak of here, that was certainly the intent. I certainly had no role in that policy decision.
Okay, but you don't believe Iraqis are barbarians, obviously.
No, but I believe that terrorists that crank off car bombs in a city square certainly are.
Okay. You're proposing now to privatize the US-led war in Afghanistan. You've suggested replacing almost 50,000 NATO troops and private contractors with 2,000 US special operators and 6,000 contractors. And you want to cut spending there, you think, by $30 billion a year, which sounds great. And I think you and I, one thing we can definitely agree on is we both think the Afghan war is not going well and has been a bit of a failure. But given 140,000 NATO troops couldn't control that country or defeat the Taliban back in 2011, what on earth makes you think that a few thousand contractors are going to do it now under your command?
Before he gives his asinine answer, I'm going to tell you what he thinks. See, yes, I'm going to call it. A lot of these white supremacists and these goofy idiots in this government won't call that what it was. Afghanistan definitely was a failure. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was just as much of a failure in some ways as Vietnam was, okay? Let me tell you what the Taliban over there used to say. And again, I'm not caping for none of them. I'm just letting you know what they said, okay, from a person that didn't see it from a civilian angle. Taliban used to have a saying, and they used to say, the United States has the watch, but we got time. Now, what that meant was they're like, okay, yeah, you got all these people over here. You got us out, outspent with your up-to-date military equipment. Okay, cool. We got time, though, because one, we know the terrain better than you. We got better rapport with some of the people over there that supported what they did. Not all of the people now, because some of the people really didn't want them to fuck out from over there. But then again, it was kind of split. I'll say, to be honest with you, it was about 50-50. So if they got support, if they understand the terrain better than you, and if they have the thing that a lot of people in the West underestimated, especially the people that never suited up and went on any battlefield, they underestimated what some people are willing to do for the sake of religious belief. Okay? That's what they meant by that. They're like, we'll wait it out. We got time. We here. We ain't going nowhere. And if you want to know something about why, we not going to back down these reparations, you look up how much money was spent during the years that we were over there in Afghanistan. And for those of you that are not aware of this, I'm going to tell you something that's going to piss you off if you pay taxes like I do, even if you wasn't enlisted. Do you know that when you look at tanks and jets and, a lot of the armored vehicles, that stuff costs in the millions up to the billions of dollars, right? You know that we left a lot of that equipment over there? Oh, yeah. Your taxpayer dollars are over there, and the Taliban is riding around in it right now, chilling. Yeah, that's right. Oh, don't believe me? Look it up. Oh, and listen, fellow veterans, y'all know I'm telling the truth about that. That's something that they ain't going to put in the media like that, but it's true. When they call a lot of the men and women back from over in Afghanistan, which was a failure, they left the equipment over there. Yeah. You know who gave that order? Jim Crow Joe Biden. Oh, yeah. Good old Uncle Joe. Yeah, you got him to thank for that. But don't believe me. Look it up for yourselves. Let's let it continue. I want y'all to hear this asinine excuse he's about to give.
Because after 9/11, I'll take you back. In the 5 days after 9/11 happened, when President Bush had a war cabinet meeting up at Camp David, the Pentagon, the best thing that the most expensive military in the world came with was some missile and some bombing strikes, and then a conventional invasion via Pakistan the following April. Okay, so literally while the headquarters of the Pentagon is still smoldering, the best the US military came with was the most conventional and most cumbersome approach. It was the CIA that said, money, authorities, the right people, and we'll get after the Taliban. And that worked, okay? Less than 100 special operators, CIA case officers, paramilitary guys, and SF guys, backed by air power, and they smashed the Taliban in a matter of weeks.
They toppled them, but that's fine. You toppled them.
Yes.
But controlling a country requires more than 6,000 people, surely.
Correct. But then the United States repeated the Soviet battle plan. Okay. So I'm not advocating...
What is your battle plan? That 6,000 people can do what 140,000 couldn't?
Sure.
I'm not an expert on maths, but that seems weird.
Well, here's the thing. You have 15,000 US troops there now. There's about 7,000 NATO and another 30,000 contractors. So I'm not advocating a privatization, I'm advocating a rationalization at a significant cost savings. The way the US has been deploying there, they send a unit for 7 or 8 months. They spend the first 2 or 3 months getting to know the area, and then a couple of months they're very productive, and then the last month they're ready to pack up, and they lift and shift, and they go home, okay? And then you rinse and repeat, and you do that again, and we've done 30-plus rotations of troops like that. Yeah. And so you have no continuity. Instead, I would take the...
Oh, he's pissing me off. I'm not going to let that slide. And trust me, if you listen to this, I'm about to get his ass, because I know a lot of guys are like, don't you dare let him get away with that. Eric, let me tell you something, man. You goofy son of a bitch, you. And that's not how that works. Before, especially, let me calm down, because before they send, especially people that are special warfare operators over there, the intel doesn't start time we hit the ground and then we get to know the area. No, we've already got rapports with people over there before we go. That's how that worked when those of us that were active were over there, okay? You go ahead and get your connections made before you get there. But see, you wouldn't know that if you was a flunky as a SEAL. And look, when you say SEAL, you usually talking about the cream of the crop, okay? You know, shout out to the Green Berets, the Army Rangers, okay? MARSOC, all the rest of you guys. No disrespect to you. This isn't that classic rivalry stuff. I respect all of my former peers. But what I'm saying is y'all understand what we did, especially, you know, specialize in hostage extraction. And by the way, to the good sister Patricia Jenkins, yeah, they left some Americans over there. They don't want to tell you about that in the news. You can find it in some independent articles, but I'll give it to you straight since you asked, sister. They wouldn't, you know, they would not approve you to get the go ahead to go get them back. And like, you know, a lot of times you wouldn't like, see, imagine what a blow it is to find out that you got some of your own left over there. I'm talking about regular enlisted or even sometimes American hostages, and they won't let the team that specializes in going to get them back go do it, which is supposed to be your job. That's, you know, look, man, that's a broadcast for another day in itself. But this lying sack of shit, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't. You don't wait till you get somewhere, then start your intel work. That begins sometimes a year in advance before you go there, okay? See, he wouldn't know that because he's not a professional soldier. What he is a damn mercenary, scum of the earth. That's why I called him the cockroaches of the military world. Just let it continue.
The same Special Forces veterans that have been working there from the U.S., from NATO.
And the guys you say are not angels.
These are the same people the U.S. military and NATO has been sending there for the last 17 years. But the difference is, as a contractor, they can go and attach to the same unit and live in the same valley and live and work and train and fight with those guys, with the Afghan counterparts, month after month for years, so they have that continuity.
Isn't the problem the Afghan government? They don't like your plan. They say it's a non-starter. They say under no circumstances will we allow the war to become a, quote, private-for-profit business. The former Afghan president, Hamid Karzai, said he vehemently opposes your proposal. It's a non-starter.
I think he would say differently if you asked him now.
I literally asked his office on Friday, and they said they're dead against it.
Well, I've talked to other people in his, I've talked to other people in his office who disagree with that.
Okay. And the current Afghan government, have they changed their position as well? They said in October, under no...
Now, the reporter got his ass again, and the audience applauds because they got him. And thankfully, this is a smart crowd here, it seems to be. But let me tell you what Erik Prince meant when he said, well, I've talked to other people in his office that would disagree with you. What he's basically saying, and the reporter wouldn't have no way of catching this, he's talking about the guys that he pulled to the side, and pay attention for those of us in Black America especially. He's talking about the coons of those nations that they come over there. Hey, little Ahmed, come here, buddy. We got a couple of dollars for you. You always want to go to the U.S., right? Hey, if you do this favor for us, you see what I'm saying? That's how these mercenaries operate like that. You know what I'm saying? And see, now you understand why the United States government will contract these little fucking weasels to do what they do. Because, hey, look, if it all falls through, possible deniability, well, they're not really a part of the regular military. I'm just letting you know how this shit goes down, right? And see, the smart leaders in other nations, they won't let these guys set foot over there. They won't. But see, let me tell you what part of the problem is, why a lot of nations will let them go over there. See, foundational Black American freedom, y'all got to understand something. Our mindset towards white supremacy, because we were right here, basically, in the belly of it, we understand that you can't trust these people. A lot of these people in these other places, especially the Eastern world, they worship these people. Now, China doesn't, but a lot of these other countries, they can't wait to make friends with white mommy and white daddy. Not knowing that you letting in the very thing that's going to destabilize your nation. So it's their fault. And I'm not talking about the average person over there. I'm talking about the sellouts in their governments. So I just wanted to make sure y'all were clear on what he meant when he told the reporter that. Let's let it continue.
Circumstances.
I doubt very much that Ashraf Ghani will win in the next election.
So you're waiting for a change of president to get your plan signed off?
Look, here's the thing. If they don't do a plan like this, if there is not a skeletal structure supporting the Afghan forces, the next president's going to wind up like Najibullah did.
The problem is the way you pitched it is, do you think it was helpful to tell the Afghans we're going to be like, quote, the East India Company, which violently ruled India on behalf of the British Empire in the 18th and 19th centuries? Was it wise to talk about having a viceroy in charge of the country? I mean, you're not hiding the fact that this is a colonialist project when you use language like that.
But here's the thing. The United States has no one person that's in charge of Afghan policy. There's nobody that the president can turn to and say, why is Afghanistan after this?
He has a special envoy, Zalmay Khalilzad.
Yeah, sure. That doesn't help. He doesn't control the military. He doesn't control the intelligence funding. He doesn't control policy.
Even if I agree with that, do you think calling someone a viceroy in charge of an East India Company is going to go down well with brown folks?
Look, for 250 years, that security model largely worked, of mostly local forces with a few professional mentors only acting as a skeletal structure support. But the difference is, I'm not there as a colonial power. These mentors, right, the contractors, the special forces veterans, are serving as adjuncts in the Afghan forces, accountable to the Afghan Minister of Defense and, of course, the president. If they're flying aircraft, we actually found two-seat aircraft where the contractor never makes the weapons release decision. It is always the Afghan.
But he flies the plane.
Safety pilot, sure.
Okay. In 2004 in Afghanistan, a Blackwater pilot flying a plane with US soldiers on board flew the plane into the side of a mountain. He crashed the plane into the mountain, killing 6 passengers on board, including 3 US soldiers. The captain's last words, this Blackwater employee flying the plane, his last words were, "I swear to God, they wouldn't pay me if they knew how much fun this was." You were paying him, Erik Prince. He had only been in the country 2 weeks. Have you or your employees learned any lessons from that horrific incident before you go back into Afghanistan?
Now you see why we hate these bags of dog shit right here. Now you see why. See, this reporter, I'm gonna tell you right now, man, he must have did his homework and went and talked to some people in some of these regions where some of this stuff happened, because even though he wouldn't know the specifics, from what I'm hearing and what I know, he did a damn good job. I can't say that enough. But see, wait till you hear this response. And for any of you that's currently enlisted or former, this is going to piss you off, man. Because, see, look, when they're around, you don't want them in charge of anything. You don't. You don't want them anywhere near you. You damn sure don't want them flying nothing, driving nothing. No, man, because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. And they don't care about the people that you went through training with, that you've already been on deployments with, And, you know, everybody pretty much has a mentality like, hey, whatever we got to do, we're going to make it sure we come back home alive. Okay? Every one of us. These people don't have that camaraderie with us. They never have and they never will. Okay? So, you know, I just want you to listen to how he talks about it, because I'll tell you what, when you hear it, you tell me if he sounds like somebody that actually gives a damn about the enlisted people when the reporter read to him what happened with that plane.
Afghanistan.
Sure, we operated 56 aircraft there safely for many, many years. We flew tens of thousands of missions safely. The difficult thing is when the DoD, your customer, asks you or tasks you to change a route so that the colonel on board could go view an enemy area on the way to, as a deviation from the planned navigation, accidents happen. That's right. It's a dangerous
place. And yet the National Transportation Safety Board and the US military both said that Blackwater provided insufficient oversight and guidance to the pilots involved in the crash. The widow of that colonel says that there was gross lack of judgment in managing this company. Who was managing the company at that time in 2004?
Now, let me go ahead and point this out. Because, see, look, apologies for stopping this so much, but I got to call out all the lies. Erik Prince, you lying son of a bitch. Even if the DOD called him and made that call, you know that pilot doesn't have the authority to make that decision on his own. You're supposed to be in contact with the commanding officer, and they're supposed to give the okay on whether that's a good idea or not. See, he's lying about omission and leaving a lot of shit out. Oh, my God, I hate this bastard, man. God, I hate him.
Sold it then?
The former operations officer of TF-160, the most elite helicopter unit in the world. So yeah, people that definitely understand aviation were in charge of that company.
And yet the US military and the National Transportation Safety Board criticized your company's role in that accident.
And they reinstated us, and we were flying missions again within 5 days of that incident. Great, they needed us.
Great, good job, Bush administration. That's got nothing to do with the culpability that your company had for the deaths of those US soldiers. They didn't die at the hands of the Taliban, they died at the hands of Blackwater.
They died at the hands of an accident made by a pilot flying in a very difficult area.
I mean, Blackwater executives were emailing each other at the time. The email came out, it said, by necessity, the initial group hired to support the Afghanistan operation did not meet the criteria identified in email traffic and had some background and experience shortfalls overlooked in favor of getting the requisite number of personnel on board to start up the contract. You're saying it internally. Your own company's admitting to each other. These guys aren't experienced, but we need to get the contract up and running. Is this what you want to replicate in Afghanistan now?
The pilots flying the mission that day had come from Alaska. They were literally high country bush pilots. These are not people that are flying in the over the swamps of Florida. They were flying over the high mountains.
Why were your executives emailing each other saying that we have experience shortfalls, but we need to get the contract up and running? Why were they saying that?
Because the transportation, Army Material Command was demanding the missions to support the missions. Here's the thing.
Bold-faced lie. They said that because all they gave a fuck about was collecting a damn check. Damn mercenaries. See, oh boy, you know what? You can tell that he's full of shit because of the way that he's trying to just sidestep and deflect and not even directly address, you know, Mr. Hassan's questions here. And y'all are right about him. That's exactly why CNN fired this guy, because, you know, you got a few people in mainstream media that are like him, very few, that, well, you know, they're actually there to do the job of journalism the old school way, which is to get to the truth and then report that to the people. So, you know, and as many of them have found out, if that's what you are in today's media game, you're not going to be there long, because today's mainstream media isn't about telling the people the truth. It's about saying whatever has been passed down on that script. And if you go off that script, okay, cool, no problem. They'll promote you to unemployed as far as working with them. So y'all are absolutely right about that. But see, this lying bastard right here, I'm going to tell you, man, again, for those of you in the tether class that are worried about us, you better be worried about this guy, because, see, he's just one of many Erik Princes. This is the most well-known, but there's other Erik Prince types with private military companies in a country near you right now as we speak, working with your puppet leaders to make sure that you stay in the condition that you're in. Let it continue.
No. Trying to serve a customer in a very difficult place. We flew tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of missions after that safely and no incidents.
Okay, let's go to our panel here in the Oxford Union. Sean McFate is a former private military contractor, former officer in the US Army, a professor at Georgetown, author of the book, The New Rules of War. Sean, you've said that US generals have laughed at Erik's plan for Afghanistan. You've called it unworkable and even magical thinking. Why?
Blackwater, if this was a job interview, mercenary, I would not give you the contract because Blackwater was simply a bodyguard shop in Iraq. You've never raised or deployed a military like you're advertising now. I have in places, and it's a lot more sophisticated than just mentors in the field. It does require up to political leadership in Kabul, and they've already messaged that they don't support this. This is a dead deal, in my opinion.
Well, and that you're mistaken, because we built the entire Afghan border police. It was 15,000 people. We did all the recruiting, the training, the vetting, and we actually had mentors that went in the field with them. And the success rate of these units, when our guys were allowed to go with them, effectively as training wheels, their success rate went very, very high, and it worked.
Okay.
So, I guess I'm the only guy that can say I've had 56 of my own aircraft in country doing that kind of work for the U.S. military.
Okay, Gaith Abdul Ahad is an award-winning Guardian journalist from Iraq. You've covered conflicts in Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, and beyond. Gaith, how do the Iraqi people remember Blackwater and Erik Prince, in your view?
I mean, it's amazing to kind of sit here and listen to Erik kind of speak about Blackwater and the services they did in Iraq, because the word Blackwater is synonymous with the worst of the American occupation of Iraq. There is not a single Iraqi that I know. I mean, I'm one of those barbarians that was liberated by your country. But there is not a single Iraqi who would, you just mentioned the word Blackwater to, who would not say corruption, violence. And I'm not talking only about the Nasur Square kind of massacre, but I'm talking about the whole 10 years of the existence of these mercenaries. And I think part of the failure of the American project in Iraq was due to the using of the contractors.
Isn't that a major problem, that you could concede that even if your plan is a good one, you shouldn't be the one doing it, given the legacy you've left behind? With
Here's the thing, your math is a little skewed, because the U.S. didn't invade Iraq till 2003, and I sold the company in 2010, so that's certainly not 10 years. The company tracked.
7 years.
We tracked all the vehicles where everybody was moving. Okay, and there was dozens and dozens of times that it was brought up. There was a Blackwater event here, Blackwater event there, and we didn't have people within 200 kilometers of that location. The sad thing is, Blackwater became like Kleenex. It became
Do you know why? Because you became this.
Because we were the largest one doing.
No, because
that
you were
very,
the
very
worst.
high-profile mission.
That's the reason. I mean, you gave the. I mean, in Iraq now, or in Yemen, or any of these places, they don't use the word contract or something. They use Blackwater. In Yemen, in wherever, in Somalia, they don't use mercenaries or contractors.
If you've been in Afghanistan recently
Yes.
as well, I believe, if you're reporting, do you think Afghans will welcome this plan that Erik is putting on the table?
I've met administration officials, high security officials of the current Afghan administrations, opposition, and some of your own friends in Afghanistan, and all agree on one thing: it's not going to work. I agree with you totally that 17 years have been total waste. They followed copied the Soviet plan. This is something we agree on. However, you're not meeting government officials. You're not talking to the minister. You're talking to warlords.
You're mistaken. I meet with dozens of Afghan officials, both in and out of the government, from all over the country,
And
be they
warlords.
Tajik, Uzbek, Hazara, and Pashtun.
And the warlords, right?
All the people that are going to be voting in the Afghan elections.
So we're going to move on, because we've got one more on our panel who needs to come in. Colonel Tim Collins is here.
Now, the guy that was just talking there, that he kept saying, and the warlords, right? He knows what he's talking about, because see, boy, look, you talk about smoke and mirrors. Everywhere these bastards go, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the other ones out here on Front Street that do the same thing that Blackwater does. The so-called UN peacekeepers, you damn right, I'm going there with roller skates on. We're gonna tell the whole truth over here tonight. The UN peacekeepers do the same thing. You think they're over there to help the people and solve the problem, but a lot of these guys, they go over there, they find out what's the major drug trades, whatever's on the black market they can make money off of. You think they don't make little deals with these guys and say, hey, look, we'll make it look good, get into it with you here or there, but, at the end of the day, this is the other thing we got going on. I'm telling you, boy, y'all really don't understand how dirty this shit is. And as far as what I'm saying about what I'm going to show y'all on Patreon, if you watch all this broadcast and you go over on my Patreon, I'll say about 5 or 10 minutes after this is over, and when I post that up there, you're going to be like, oh my God, that's disgusting. You know what? fact of business, I'm going to try to find it while this broadcast is going on and go ahead and post it over there. But either way, just check over there, and what you're going to hear is going. If you got kids, I'm going to caution you, you're going to have to prepare yourself to hear that, because I ain't no way I can play it on YouTube, but I'm going to let it continue here.
Tim, you once commanded British troops during Iraq. You gave that famous speech that a lot of us remember. In 2004, you quit the army and founded New Century, a private military consulting company. How would you evaluate what happened on Blackwater's watch?
Well, it's a whole different thing. I think what we have to remember, and indeed I've discussed this many times with Erik, the US State Department, the US military asked for services. They encouraged. They were enthusiastic to a point of hysteria that Blackwater go and do these missions. When it went wrong, they ran a mile. And so you have to look at those people and say, at a point where there was chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff were visiting the facility and encouraging more and more of these services to be privatized and let out. And when things went wrong, they turned their back on it.
Are you saying that Erik Prince and Blackwater were scapegoated by the US government?
Well, I think that as a result of the rather expensive court case that you've been through, I think that was the conclusion in the end, is that the criticism I as a contractor would level is that Blackwater and the organization probably grew too fast. There was people who went initially who were of the highest Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, Task Force 160. Some of the people who are coming in at the end had nowhere near that. And it's a question of who's supervising that, because the people...
Let me go ahead and put this out here too, because he's dancing and beating around the bush with it. You want to know why Blackwater in particular has such a monumental fuck up rate? Let me tell you something, man. I'm not going to say in every case, but I'll say in general, in most cases, if you get a dishonorable discharge from any branch of the armed service, you earn that shit. You earned that. So, you know what Mr. Prince goes and does? He'll take guys on that's had dishonorable discharge. Oh, yeah, we gonna tell the truth. That's right, Erik. I'm gonna put your business out here, you bastard, you. He'll go take the fuck-ups. If you got a dishonorable discharge, it's for a reason, okay? You got to work hard to get that in the military, okay? In any branch of the armed service, you got to work hard to do that, all right? He go take the fuck-ups and the disciplinary problems and give them a paycheck. And yes, most of them have white supremacist sentiments, okay? So that's one of the main reasons why they fuck up so much shit. Let it continue.
When we look at them who were in court and convicted, were not of that quality, were not of that hue. How did they get there?
How did they get there? Why were you hiring poor quality people towards the end of your period in Iraq?
Well, because there's literally not enough Delta Force or SEAL Team 6 or even SEALs for that matter to do that mission. You go to Marine infantry or Army infantry.
Oh, them fighting words right there. Oh, no. You're not going to get away with that, you son of a bitch, you. Let me tell y'all something, man. When it comes to special operations units that he's mentioned, Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, okay, MARSOC, any of the different branches you want to name, Green Berets, it don't take a lot of them to do anything, okay? It never did take a lot of us to do anything. You know why? Because every man, okay, especially in the SEALs, because there's never been any women in the SEALs. Okay, you got women in other branches of the Special Forces, small percentage, but everybody that's a part of those different units are very well trained. When I tell you the best of the best, that's not me just saying that, okay? The lesson that I want black folks to take from that, you don't need a large number of people to get things done if everybody's on code and you got the same agenda. You'd be surprised at what a small group or unit can do if you got accurate intel, everybody's on the same page, and you take pride in what you're doing, okay? So it's not about the numbers, and he says he's a former SEAL. He probably is, but you know, he definitely don't sound like any of the guys. He don't sound like any of the guys I know. He don't. Because you wouldn't know that that's one of the number one things that you pride yourself on. Like, yeah, we might not be the biggest dog in the fight, but goddamn it, we got the sharpest teeth. Okay? So, yeah, I ain't letting him get away with that. That's disrespectful as hell, which further underscores why I can't stand this bastard.
The one fair characterization that I will say is Blackwater did 2 types of missions. We worked for the State Department. They dictated you must drive a polished, waxed Suburban, okay, big SUV, armored, 11,000 pounds, lights and sirens down the road. And when you drive the same route every day that the State Department tells you to, it's very easy for the enemy to set up an ambush.
You keep saying engagement ambushes. Just to be clear for the audience, one study...
There he goes lying again. See, listen, man. Yes, the State Department will recommend certain routes for you to take. However, the commanding officer in the field has the right to change that at any given time. And look, let me tell you something. Between the State Department and the Department of Defense, all the commanding officer has to do in the field before he sends anybody out to do anything, get in touch with the Deputy Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of Defense themselves. Hey, look, from what we know, this isn't the safest route to take. We're not doing that, okay? And we're not going to move until you go ahead and give me authority to do that. That's how it really goes, okay? See, all this lying about mission, I'm not going to let them get away with none of that.
Found that Blackwater opened fire first in 84% of the shootings. It wasn't defensive.
Because
you fired first.
Okay, but it's not just a matter of the enemy opening fire with a firearm to attack. They open fire with a trigger switch when they drive up to you and destroy you.
Okay.
I mean, literally.
But there's also ambulance drivers, 9-year-old children,
you should see
doctors
the pictures,
on their way to work.
Whether it's Hamas in Palestine, in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, bad guys load ambulances with explosives and kill innocent people.
But not in the cases I cited. We're going to take a break. In part 2, we're going to talk to Erik Prince about some of his work in China and his relationship with the Trump administration. And we're going to hear from our very patient audience here in the Oxford Union. Join us for part 2. Welcome back. You're watching Head to Head on Al Jazeera English. My guest today is Erik Prince, the founder, former CEO of Blackwater, also a big supporter of and donor to President Donald Trump. Erik, I want to talk to you about your relationship with President Trump in a moment. But before I do, just very briefly, you're currently Executive Deputy Chairman of Frontier Services Group, FSG, a Hong Kong-based security and logistics firm that you founded. Why is FSG opening a training center for security guards in, of all places, Xinjiang province in China, where up to 1 million Muslim Uyghurs are being held in basically concentration camps right now?
There's a lot of misreporting on that. The company is not opening any training facility up there. That was actually discussed at a board meeting. The reporting got it wrong. There was some kind of memorandum signed for construction services, not training. The company doesn't do any training of any police or security forces
Why did it say
China
that last year? Why did your company say it was establishing training facilities?
It signed an MOU for construction services.
Put out a press release, March the 2nd, with your name on it.
For not my name. It was for construction services.
Your name's on the press release. Your name's on the press release several times, and it says, I've got the press release quote here, Xinjiang, China, establishing training facilities and buying security equipment and vehicles.
Again.
Got his ass, lying bag of dog shit. Let me tell you what really happened. What it was, they went and cut a deal with some of the Chinese traders over there, because we're going to call it what it is. See, I want y'all to understand, there are coons everywhere around the world. It's sellouts everywhere around the world. We use that term, sellouts. They cut a deal with him, thinking that they was going to make some money. And what happened was the CCP got wind of it and shut that shit down. And let me tell you something. If you get caught as a Chinese citizen doing something that's against the Chinese Communist Party, guess what, buddy? You kiss your ass goodbye. That's going to be the last time you see it in the sunshine. So that's what happened. It failed and went wrong. So now you got to try to backpedal and save face. Yeah, I'm not going to let him get away with none of his lies. But shout out to this reporter again. He is on his ass with nothing but the truth. Let's let it continue.
And it was for construction services.
It's training facilities.
If you look at the actual translation from Mandarin to English, it was for construction services, okay? The only
sorry, we didn't translate it. This is your company's English press release, with respect.
The only training services, the only training services the company does is for people like Bank of China employees or China Airlines employees, because they travel the world and they go to dangerous places.
So you are training people in Xinjiang?
No.
So the press release was wrong?
The company has zero footprint in Xinjiang, China.
So it's not establishing the training facility. It said it was establishing on March the 2nd, 2018 in an English language press release.
The board has discussed this twice, and there is not $1 or RMB allocated for anything like that.
Okay.
Oh, well, gee whiz, Eric. I guess I just put the press release out for no reason with your name on it, huh, buddy? Yeah, Boy, when I tell you that these people, what have I always told y'all, if them thin, pale lips are moving, they are lying. You understand me? If them lips is moving, they lying. Dude is lighting him up. Notice that he don't have because see, look, he probably didn't understand what caliber reporter this was and how well studied he was going to be on him. So if he didn't have that right there, he would have just lied like, oh, that didn't happen. That never happened. Let me tell you something, man. And this is the part that I want Black America to understand about why it's important to us. And I've already explained why, if you're a continental African in particular, that's over there in your nation, you need to pay attention. But as far as us in Black America, let me tell you what happens when the clowns that are part of Academi, Blackwater, whatever you want to call it, when they get washed out, guess where they often fall back to? Anybody want to take a guess? A lot of this crazy stuff that you hear happening to our people around here, especially our young people, you know, how they do us. Guess who a lot of them guys are? Former Blackwater employees. Yeah. Because see, if they fuck up so bad over there around a group of others, you know you got to be bad if you with a group of fuck ups and you fail to meet fuck up standards. Okay, we used to call it the FUBAR form, fucked up beyond all repair. For those that don't know military jargon, if you fuck up over there and then you know you're already angry, they go and join a race soldier department. Yeah, I just want y'all to be aware of that little fact right there. Okay, let it continue.
And you've got nothing to do with what's going on with the Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang?
Zero.
Okay, but you do have a lot to do with the Chinese government. So for someone who sees himself as a great American patriot, veteran, ex-Navy SEAL, America first, Donald Trump supporter, isn't it odd that you do so much security business with the Chinese government, which is seen by many, including by President Trump, as a major geopolitical adversary of the United States? Isn't that weird? Isn't that a conflict?
Again, the company doesn't do any security per se. It does some training for people to avoid being a victim of a terrorism incident. There is no Blackwater, no FSG.
You sold Blackwater.
You're right. There is no FSG employee that's armed doing that kind of security.
But you are working in China. You're Hong Kong based. The majority of your company is Chinese owned, is it not?
It's retail investors, everything from mutual funds. And
majority Chinese owned, yes or no?
I don't know if it's majority, but there's a lot of Chinese ownership. Sure.
How much? It's your company. You're the executive deputy chairman.
Sure, no, it's publicly listed and it's all publicly disclosed.
So tell us.
The fact is, the company does grocery delivery, trucking all through Southern Africa. We do medevac. We're the biggest medevac provider for the UN.
But there's no conflict between...
And all of those are front operations for everything that I described earlier here in the broadcast tonight. And see, you know what? You know, I'm gonna post some receipts about that. You know, I'm gonna try to find some stuff that I know YouTube will allow me to post. I'm gonna try to put some of it on a community tab. Cause boy, y'all look, y'all just don't understand how deep this shit goes. And like I said, this is gonna enlighten you to a lot of stuff because look, he's right. They do all those different things. But if you think that that's all that, it's just a front, in other words, using it to cover their tracks for other types of things. Don't believe me? Look at what the UN got caught doing in the Congo a few years ago. Yeah. And when them trucks flipped over and they found that they were stealing from them, that's why they want them to get the fuck out from over there. Not to mention them raping, you know what I'm saying, all them little girls and their kids and stuff. Oh, man, look, y'all, let me watch my words on that. Don't worry. I'm going to figure a way to post some receipts on here, and I'm definitely going to put that information on Patreon for y'all. So let it continue.
Working for the Chinese and working for the US as you want to do now in Afghanistan, you don't think there's a conflict there as an American patriot, ex-veteran?
Look, America is a big trading partner of China and helping China connect its logistics lines for better trade. I think countries that trade together tend to not fight together, fight against each other.
Sean McFay is a former private military contractor, former officer in the US Army, professor at Georgetown University, author of the book, The New Rules of War. Sean, is there a conflict of interest here? Is there a concern, do you think, in Washington, D.C., where you're based?
Yes, there's a big interest. So last year, the National Defense Strategy, which is the Pentagon's strategy for the world, shifted the first time in years away from counterterrorism, counterinsurgency into the threats of Russia and China. And we all know that China uses its economic instruments of power to look Look at what they did to Sri Lanka. They took over a port as if they were a mafia don. So it's not just economic trade, there's also a darker aspect to it, and many in Washington see you as one of their sort of weapons of war.
Are you a Chinese weapon of war?
Absolutely not, because we're not doing any kind of training building their tactical.
What about the
security
leverage that Sean makes the point about? The economic leverage.
The fact is, what does the company do now? It does trucking and transportation from Southern Africa. Okay, you can deliver groceries from Cape Town all the way up through the DRC. We medevac, we fly people all over the continent, and we do significant air operations out of Malta, supporting, hopefully, oil operations in countries like Iraq.
Now, let me pause and ask my very astute audience a question. Do you really think that Erik Prince or any of his other peers, because it's not just him, I'm using Erik Prince as a metaphor for all of his kind. Do you really think that Erik Prince is some kind-hearted, good Samaritan, humanitarian that cares about all this stuff he's listing off? Or do you rather concede the point that I made earlier that these are just fronts for a lot of other illegal things that's going on and deals that they've cut with a lot of puppet leaders? See, let me go ahead and just throw this part out there in layman's terms where everybody can understand it. When you look at situations like how Saddam Hussein got put in power, for those of you who don't know your history on that, the United States created that monster. Okay, they gave him training through the CIA. Same thing with Osama bin Laden. He received training from the CIA when he was fighting with the Mujahideen in Afghanistan against the Russians. Okay, now one of Osama's beefs was, because I'm gonna come back to Saddam Hussein in a minute, but as far as one of Osama's beefs with the U.S. was, they had cut a deal that they was going to help rebuild Afghanistan after the war because the Russians were trying to stomp all over them, and they successfully repelled them. Okay, that's why one reason why he was hailed as a hero. Instead of them keeping their word, they said, yeah, about that rebuilding stuff, you got it. And they bounced. So he felt betrayed. And ever since then, he had a vendetta against the United States. And the reason why that was a stupid thing to do, you trained this man so he knows how you think. See, when somebody understands how you think, you create a dangerous enemy. Okay. Now, with Saddam, they installed him, to overthrow the previous ruler there. And, hey, them so-called gas and chemical weapons he had, who you think gave them to him? Yeah, don't believe me. Do your research. I got files about this type of stuff on my Patreon, okay? So when they're ready to destabilize things, they're not using regular military a lot of times. They're using your Erik Princes. Back to business, I'm going to try to post some more stuff. I won't be able to do it here, but I'm going to try to post some more stuff that's going to go into detail about a lot of what I'm covering over here tonight so that you have an even deeper understanding about what Erik Prince does over in these other different nations. Again, those of you in the tether class that are over here, you need to be concerned about all of this that I'm showing my people over here tonight.
Or Pakistan or the hydro dams. Look, countries around the world, China shows up with a lot of money and a lot of people to do infrastructure projects. The Russians are showing up with muscle and weapons. And the United States has largely missed the boat. The one positive change the Trump administration has made is the law changed last October for OPIC, the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, the only part of the U.S. government that actually makes money. And now they've shifted a huge budget away from the State Department to OPIC so that it is managed and it allows more investment.
They've also launched a trade war with China, which might put you in two different camps at the same time. Let me ask Colonel Tim Collins this question. He's here. You're a famous officer in the British Army. Now you're chairman of your own private security consultancy, New Century. How do you respond to critics who say, when you run these private for-profit companies, you're only loyal to yourselves or to your bottom lines. You're not loyal to a national government. And that's a problem. That makes you conflicted. What's your response to people who say that?
Well, at the end of the day, there's a thing called international law, and nobody does anything outside. And if they do, then they must be held accountable. The difficulty is the only people who will subject to and allow themselves to be regulated are the good guys. There are mercenary activity all over the world. The reality is that many people innocently in this room don't realize that many governments in the world, particularly in Pakistan, India, Iran, Middle East, maintain people who they pay and deploy as contractors, and these are people who are committing atrocities. They won't be regulated.
Okay, so let me put that point very briefly, Sean, very briefly. What's your response to this point about regulation? Do you think companies like Erik's are as regulated as they should be?
Well, I'm a little bit more skeptical about the power of international law in general about mercenaries, because the thing about, who's going to go into Yemen and arrest all those mercenaries? The UN? And if so, the mercenaries can shoot back, right? They can kill your law enforcement. And I'm not suggesting that that would be Erik's plan, but Erik is part of a broader trend of the rise of mercenaries. Where does this end? Private wars without states. And what if the U.S. partakes in this?
Erik, let me ask you this. You're a big supporter of Donald Trump. You've been questioned by Special Counsel Robert Mueller over the Russiagate investigation. He's looked at your laptop and your phones, I believe. You've also testified to Congress. In November 2017, you told Congress under oath that you played, quote, no official or really unofficial role in the Trump campaign. What you didn't tell Congress is that on August 3rd, 2016, you were at a meeting during the campaign at Trump Tower with Don Jr., Trump's son, with Stephen Miller, then a campaign advisor to Trump, with George Nader, a former Blackwater colleague of yours who acts as a back channel to the Saudis, the Emiratis. He also happens to be a convicted pedophile. And also Joel Zamel, an Israeli expert on social media manipulation. How come?
Don't miss that part, because again, this reporter is on the mark with that. Yes, you heard that right. They hire bastards that like to mess with folks' kids. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's definitely true. Yeah, look, man, I know he hates this guy. I know he hates him to this day, even though this was done years ago. And I had to dig this out the crates because I wanted y'all to see this for yourselves. And again, reiterated, I want continental Africans in particular to pay close attention to this broadcast, because a lot of the stuff that's going on in your nations, this son of a bitch here got his hands in it. You already heard him at the beginning of the broadcast. He talking full blown, no covert language. Hey, let's just recolonize y'all again. So all of this welcoming that a lot of y'all like to do when them folks come over there, you might want to reconsider that, because one of them getting off the plane that you singing and dancing with might be some of his people. Let's let it continue.
You didn't mention that meeting to Congress, given it's so relevant to their investigation.
I did. As part of the investigations, I certainly disclosed any meetings. The very few I had.
Not in the congressional testimony you gave to the House. We went through it. You didn't mention anything about August 2016 meeting in Trump Tower. They specifically asked you what context you have, and you didn't answer that.
I don't believe I was asked that question.
You were asked, were there any formal communications or contact with the campaign? You said, apart from writing papers, putting up yard signs, no. That's what you said. I've got the transcript of the conversation here.
Sure. I mean, I might have been, I think I was at Trump headquarters, or the campaign headquarters.
Trump Tower, August 3rd, 2016. You,
possible.
An Israeli dude, a back channel to the Emiratis and the Saudis, Don Jr., Stephen Miller.
We're there to talk about Iran policy.
Are you there to talk about Iran policy? Mm-hmm. Don't you think that's something important to disclose to the House Intelligence Committee while you're under oath?
I did.
You didn't. We just went through the testimony. There's no mention of the Trump Tower meeting in August 2016. Why not?
I don't know if they got the transcript wrong.
Oh, they got the transcript wrong. So if we go,
I don't know. I remember certainly discussing.
I mean, this is a problem for you, because we know that Robert Mueller, he hasn't been able to establish collusion yet, but he has got a lot of guys for lying to the authorities and not telling the whole truth. Is that a problem now? That even if you accidentally didn't tell them, that could come back and haunt you?
I fully cooperated. I haven't heard from anybody in more than 9 months.
I mean, members of Congress, after they discovered this meeting, have talked about certain witnesses not telling the truth. But you believe you told Congress about this meeting, even though it's not in the transcript, just to be clear.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. You had another meeting, which they did talk to you about, in the Seychelles on 11th January 2017, a week before Trump's inauguration, where good old George Nader was there again on behalf of the Emiratis, as was top Russian oligarch Kirill Dmitriev, a close ally of Vladimir Putin's. The Emiratis saw that meeting as a way of creating a back channel between Putin's guy, Dmitriev, and Trump's guy, you, didn't they?
I don't think so. I was there to talk to the Emiratis about Somalia and some of the other problem areas that we'd helped with before.
Was it also about Iran?
No.
And so how did you end up with a Russian oligarch who runs the Russian Direct Investment Fund and is seen by the Emiratis as the messenger to Putin, they call him?
Well, as I recall, the Emiratis were investors in that fund, and any fund manager tends to travel to where their LP, their investors, need them to be.
But what were you chatting about with the Russian dude?
I talked about it in testimony, and that's all I'm going to say.
Now you see why we never trusted these sons of bitches right here. You hear this, Weasel? See, I understand that a lot of people, have never served in the armed forces or whatever. I'm going to give you this to make sure everybody understands it, because I believe in being a very effective communicator. Let me tell you something. How would any of you feel? I'm going to put in something that a lot of you probably can relate to, and I'm not talking down to my audience. I just want to make sure y'all understand this. A lot of you probably played some type of recreational sport, or, when you were in high school, college, or whatever. Basically, what you're hearing, imagine if you had somebody that looks like they're on your team, got your uniform on, but hell, they're telling the other team the plays you gonna make and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Would you trust them? Would you trust them? And better yet, do you think you could win like that? If you got somebody that's supposed to be on your team, but they ran over there going by the sideline, telling the coach what the plays is, they got some kind of little system. I don't know. Maybe they wrote something down and passed it to another player while you're on the court. Hey, take this to the coach. Imagine if a coach paid one of the members of your team to do that. That's what you're looking at right here. I just want to give you something that you can understand why regular enlisted would never trust these fucking mercenaries, because they're the cockroaches of the military world. I'm not going to stop saying that. That's what they are. And I'm gonna say about what I said in the testimony. That's all I'm gonna say about it. Fucking weasel, you boy. Yeah. I'm gonna let it continue. Stand there, boy.
But it was just a kind of accidental meeting.
Yes.
Even though George and Ada, your former colleague...
Like I've said before, it lasted one beer, which doesn't take me very long.
So you flew halfway around the world to a secret meeting in the Seychelles to have one beer with Vladimir Putin's messenger.
I was there to see the Emirati leadership.
That's not what George Nader seems to be telling the Mullah folks right now. Does that worry you, that Nader's contradicting your testimony, your former colleague?
I think it's amazing for you to try to view into the Mueller testimony. That's my depression.
I mean, okay, that's what's being reported. Okay, I just want to bring in. You mentioned Iran, interestingly enough. I just want to bring in very briefly before we move on. I know the audience are waiting. Gaith Abdel Ahad is an award-winning Guardian journalist from Iraq. You've covered conflicts across the Middle East. When you hear about the Emiratis and Trump and the Saudis and the Israelis, what is that all about? I mean, Erik mentioned Iran. Is this all about Iran?
I mean, of course, we're living, people say it's a Cold War. It's not a Cold War anymore between the Emiratis, Saudis, the Israelis, and the Iranians on the other side. And what the Emiratis are doing, for example, in Yemen, and I think you worked with the Emiratis and you advised them at one point, they are actually implementing your Afghanistan plans. So if you see the Emirati war in Yemen, it is tens of thousands of mercenaries, locally hired forces with skeleton troops from the Emiratis. A war that is being fought so viciously with no accountability whatsoever. Within the big arch of fighting the Iranians who didn't exist in Yemen.
Have you advocated using private contractors to take on Iran to the Trump administration?
No.
People have accused you of advocating that in the past. You've talked about using private contractors to confront Iran? No? You see no role for a Blackwater / FSG in any relation to Iran?
No.
Okay. Just to check.
And if they ever did that, okay, under any administration, if that ever happened, mark my words, you hearing it right here today, February 22nd, 2024. If that ever happens, that will be the biggest fuck up of all time. And then, look, I'm going to tell you where that would go. They will run their asses over there to Iran, call themselves trying to do what professionals do. They will fuck it up. A lot of them will get taken hostage, and then regular military will have to go in to try to negotiate and free their ass. Okay? And look, I'm going to tell you something. Chances are, if the Iranians catch you, we have zero diplomatic ties with that country. We really don't. Boy, look, let me tell you something. It goes without saying, but there's certain places on this planet, boy, that you would not want to be at the mercy of those people, especially in any type of military or antagonistic capacity. Oh boy, because it ain't gonna be a fast death. Who knew? We talking about nations that believe wholeheartedly in torture. Okay, and look, the United States is one of them. Don't let them fool you about that. If you don't understand what happened at Guantanamo Bay, you think that was just a whole big holding cell, you out your damn mind. Yes, they did. They tortured them. Now, do I have any love for them bastards down there? No, I didn't. Because a lot of them that were actually terrorists, they deserve that and then some. But I'm just telling you that, I'm putting the United States in there because they always, we don't believe in torture. Yeah, okay. That's a lie. All nations do that to a certain extent. Let me just put it out there like that. So yeah, I'm just making sure that y'all understand the stuff that the reporter wouldn't say. And again, he's doing a fabulous job, but this is one to be studied here. Let's let it continue.
Before we go to the audience, I've got to ask one last question. You are part of a group of high-profile Trump supporters, including Steve Bannon, Sheriff David Clark, and others, who are planning on raising private money to build a wall along the US-Mexico border. You even have a GoFundMe page. What I don't get, though, is I'm pretty sure I heard Donald Trump say that Mexico would be paying for the wall.
Don't discount Mexico actually paying for the wall.
I think most of us have, but yes.
More news on that. Look, there's a lot of places where it's federal land and a GoFundMe individual effort is not possible, but there's a lot of places where U.S. ranchers or U.S. landowners own land right up to the border. They're sick of their farms effectively being massive transit spots for drug and criminal activity, and so they would welcome that. The guy who started that is a triple amputee, okay, military veteran, who started it, and he's raised more than $20 million, and the cost per...
asking people for money. When Trump told us more than 100 times, people counted, Mexico would pay for the walls. Why do we need you and this guy and his GoFundMe page? Unless Trump lied to all.
Because, again, don't discount Mexico actually paying for part of the wall.
You think they'll pay for the wall?
There are things that may happen that Mexico will end up paying.
He didn't say part of the wall, though, Eric. He didn't say, hey, Mexico's going to pay for part of the wall. He very explicitly said, Mexico will pay for the wall.
The last chapter is not written on that, mark my words.
So Mexico will pay for the wall, so then why are you fundraising? You can't have it both ways. Mexico will pay for the wall, but I'm going to raise money. Which one?
Because people are frustrated. They're sick of not having...
They're frustrated that the president can't get Mexico to pay for the wall 2 years into his presidency after claiming
they're frustrated.
By the way, that little fundraiser that he did, where do y'all think most of that money probably went? Look, see, let me talk to the white supremacists for a minute. A lot of you that like to support guys like Erik Prince, and Gavin McInnes, who is actually the real leader of the Proud Boys. He used Enrique Torrio as the front flunky, and you see where Enrique Torrio is today. By the way, he was a federal informant. But a lot of you white supremacists that like to throw your money at guys like this, they're scamming you, you big dummy. See, you know what? Let me take it old school for a minute here. Y'all know one of the scams they used to run at Klan rallies? Let me put you up on some game. I'm finna make the white supremacists mad a lot. I'm like, boy, how do you know that? And I'm gonna tell you, I study you better than you study yourself sometime, white supremacists. One of the scams they used to run to raise funds at Klan rallies back in the day, you would have a lot of established Klansmen that would be out in the crowd as if they were regular recruits, little well-known people. And like when it come time for them to donate and pass the hat around, so to speak, or the hood, they would have people that are already members of the Klan, not the recruits, people that are already members walk up and give money. And what they would do after they got, because, the idea was, if a couple of people go up and get it started, everybody else will start donating. What they would do is the people that are already established, they got their money back. And they were basically, this is encouraging the regular broke jackass, the billies of the hill, as I call them, hillbillies, billies of the hill. They would encourage them to go and empty their little, lint balls out their pocket. That's one of the scams that, the white supremacists have recycled over and over in modern times. So that's what happened with that so-called GoFundMe money. Just putting it out there, but hey, don't worry about it. White supremacists, black people don't know nothing. What I just said can be verified by the way. So anyway, I'm just trying to give them the truth. They ain't got this. Let's get it back to it.
It is a national security issue when you have thousands of people crossing the border with a lot of drugs. Look, America has a huge opium epidemic.
And the majority of the drugs come through legal points of entry. I'm talking about the funding. Trump said Mexico would fund the wall. Did he lie to people when he said that?
What used to be a bipartisan issue, the Democrats have made a hyper-partisan issue.
Did he lie to us when he said Mexico would pay for the wall, given you're now trying to get Americans to pay for the wall?
I don't believe the president has lied. And like I said, the last chapter on Mexico paying for the wall is not done yet.
Okay.
Mark my words.
So we'll wait for some more. Okay. In the meantime, Americans are going to pay for it through your fundraising. Let's go to our audience who've been waiting very patiently. I'm going to go to the front here, and then we'll go to the back. Gentleman here with the beard.
Being originally Iraqi and having spent some time in Iraq, I've seen how Iraqis still shudder at the name Blackwater, reminded of the endless aggression, the use of weapons as car horns, or even the use of tear gas as car traffic control. Do you not think that Blackwater has a role to play in perpetuating violence in Iraq, as well as laying the foundations for the creation of Al-Qaeda and ISIS?
There's 110,000 Iraqi civilians have died after Blackwater ended any involvement in Iraq. Blackwater was not the problem in Iraq. A very sectarian government dominated by Iranian sectarian units that have been pounding on the Sunnis and now pounding on the Kurds is probably the thing that led to that outcrop of ISIS.
But even if that's part of it, most military experts, including US military experts, agree that high-profile incidents, whether it's Abu Ghraib or others, did help act as a recruiting sergeant for groups like ISIS that didn't exist before the US invaded Iraq. So something like the Nisr Square massacre that is still remembered in Baghdad may well have helped people say, you know what, I'm going to go join an insurgent group now. That's how Americans treat us, private contractors. Shoot 9-year-old kids in the street, shoot mothers with their children.
I think massive unemployment and an Iraqi government that is, when
I'm not disputing that. I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying, but you discount that an Iraqi sitting at home seeing the Nisr Square massacre doesn't think, you know what, I might as well go join the insurgency if this is how Americans treat us, innocent people.
No, that's not, look, there was a justice process that served. There was actually accountability. Lots of investigation for that, but like I said,
that's not what I asked. That's not what I asked, Eric. You don't answer the question I asked. If an Iraqi sitting at home sees the Nisr Square massacre, you don't think that might incite him to join an insurgent group? There's no logical leap.
Of course, bad news travels fast and it irritates people.
And you created the bad news, is what this gentleman is suggesting.
But we did not create the 110,000 Iraqi civilians that were murdered.
Okay, you didn't kill all of them.
And by Hashtashabi and the Iranian sectarian.
Fine, let's go back to the audience. Gentleman here in the red tie.
I'd like to ask what you think some of President Trump's greatest foreign policy achievements have been thus far, and what he should focus on over the next 2 years to secure re-election.
Well, the president, he campaigned against endless wars. And the Pentagon, look, there is a real military-industrial complex, but he's trying to stop that. He is trying to remove or reduce the U.S. presence in Afghanistan and in Syria. He's been getting the North Koreans to the table, and if he can actually negotiate an end to the Korean War, it'll be a magnificent first step. And I think if that's the case, then the U.S. should be willing to pull all troops out of South Korea and end the U.S. presence in Korea, which we've had for 70-some years.
You're not a fan of Iran, as we discussed briefly. Should he negotiate with Iran too? Why is it that Iran is the evil regime, nobody should talk to them, but North Korea, I send him love letters, he sends me love letters?
To my knowledge, I think there certainly is still back-channel negotiations with the Iranians as well, but they continue to do questionable things in Syria.
Let me answer that question that the reporter threw out there in a rather kind of humorous manner. The reason why Donald Trump at the time when he was in office was actually being diplomatic with Kim Jong-un, okay, the current leader of North Korea, and he is shit crazy. Let me tell y'all something, boy. When you know what a punishment should be for like people over here like pedophiles and stuff like that, we should drop their ass off in North Korea. Oh yes, that's far worse than any prison over here in the United States. North Korea or send them to the Russian prison called Black Dolphin. Yeah, that's where they should go. But see, the reason why Donald Trump had to be on diplomatic terms with Kim Jong-un, he has a very nuclear capable country, okay? If nothing else works there, them nukes work, okay? And that look, got deals with the Russians, okay? They squashed that old beef they had from years prior, okay? He's cool with China. Basically, the relationship between North Korea and China is basically like, imagine a little punk-ass chihuahua nipping at your heels and stuff. And then when you get ready to stomp your feet and go after them, it go run up there where the big dog is. Big dog in this case would be China. So yeah, that's why like it's kind of like too, I'll give you another analogy, but the average person understand it, especially young people. Imagine two big swole buff dudes, you know what I'm saying, that equal size, equal strength. They don't really want to fight each other like that because they know it's a good chance both of them will get hurt. So it'll be a lot of talking, if anything, or nothing at all. You understand? So that's kind of what that was. Because that little crazy son of a bitch right there, boy, yeah, that's Kim Jong-un ain't no joke. Let me tell you something. If you hadn't done your homework on North Korea, the way them people live, bro, and let me tell you how crazy it is. Over there, and by the way, we have no diplomatic ties to that country. Okay, there's no like U.S. embassy over there. If you don't have a picture, and you're just gonna sound crazy, but I'm telling you, you can look this up. If you don't have a picture of the so-called supreme leader Kim Jong-un over there in North Korea on your wall, and it's got to be kept spotless, you can actually get locked up in a labor camp. Oh, that's not the worst of it. Commit a crime over there, do something wrong? Well, congratulations, because not only are you going to get locked up, they'll lock up to 3 generations of your family, including the kids, in his labor camps. Oh, yeah. That's how it goes down in North Korea, okay? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, boy, if some of us over here, if we was over there, you got the family member that like to steal or fuck up, I would request, put me in the cell with his ass, because I'm going to beat your ass the whole time we locked up in this damn labor camp. I'm trying to tell you that, hey, look, you don't take my word for it. That is literal hell on earth, okay? I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I really wouldn't, okay? So that just to let you know how crazy it is over there in North Korea, okay? And look, the people there held hostage. A lot of them try to escape to South Korea, but, here recently, a lot of times they're sending them back up there, because, one of the things they'll do, if you defect or whatever, you better not come back. Because if because, the way them people live, they're not used to the outside world. So it's like, a lot of times there have been cases of them, some of them, because they're not able to adjust in a normal society, they'll go back. When they go back, last time they ever heard from ever again. But, that's a whole nother broadcast for another day. I just wanted to clear that up on what the reporter was saying there. Let's let it continue.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to the audience. Let's go to the lady here and then the gentleman there. Stand up.
Hi, this is also in regards to the August 3rd meeting of 2016. You said that you mentioned it in your testimony to the House Intelligence Committee. I have the transcript right here of the testimony on the 30th of November 2016. You didn't. I could read from it if you want.
We don't have time for you to read the transcript of the House.
So why didn't you? Why are you saying you did when you?
Do you want to have another go answering this question? Why didn't you mention it in your testimony if it was nothing to hide?
Not all the discussion that day was transcribed. And that's a fact.
Okay.
But your answers to the questions suggest that there was no involvement. That they asked you, for example, have you had any meetings with the UAE delegation prior to the Seychelles meeting? And the August 3rd meeting was prior to the Seychelles meeting. George Nader is a representative of MBZ.
Okay, let Erik respond.
Like I said, not everything was transcribed from that discussion. You weren't there.
You've been very I admire, you've been very forthcoming tonight. On this issue, you're very... Don't want to say much. Are you worried? Are you worried about Mueller?
Nope, not at all.
No? Okay. Let's go back to the audience. Let's go to the gentleman there.
I was caught up in this going back to my hotel, covering a story. At the time it was mayhem, as you know, and we saw people getting killed. My own driver was injured. Now, we've discussed this with you before, Erik. Well, just going back, what lessons have you learned from it? And would you have done things differently then if you knew what you know now?
Sure. I wouldn't ever do security for the State Department again. It just wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth the damage or the horror to the company. If we were going to do it, I would have insisted, like we did for any NGO work that we did, is that we have cameras, okay? Because the camera serves as that third-party neutral observer, because it's very easy to second-guess something that happens, days ago or weeks or months ago. But it's very different when you have to make a split-second decision.
Get. You're saying cameras, that the implication being that you don't accept.
It should be absolutely illegal for Blackwater to work with NGOs, non-governmental organizations. What purpose would you have? That's not what that's for. But again, I've already broke down what they're up to. A lot of times, and most of these NGOs that are run by white mommy and white daddy, they over there in a lot of these continental African nations. And they've cut deals with the Erik Princes to go over there and do all kinds of shit that's completely illegal, okay? And the puppet leaders know about it because they get a cut of it. They get a cut to look the other way. They're like, hey, you know what? If you do this for me, I'll scratch your back with this favor over here if you just, look the other way on stuff. And see, here's the despicable thing about puppet leaders, the likes of Paul Biya of Cameroon and others. The Erik Princes will hurt their own citizens, and you would think, okay, they ain't gonna let nothing happen to their own people. You'd be absolutely wrong. Those sellout puppet leaders will do anything for a bag. You understand me? in case you really don't understand how despicable they are, think about the sexy reds over here, but put sexy red in charge of a country. Anything to get to the bag. That's what you're looking at. I'm going to call it what it is. The sellout African leaders are basically the turbo thoughts of that continent. And they are a hindrance and an unholy disgrace to the young continent of Africans that actually want to have decent lives and not have to leave their homelands to make a decent living and be somebody. So yeah, that's exactly what's going on with that. But we're gonna let it continue here.
You did anything wrong there? Had there been cameras, your men would be vindicated. Is that what you're saying? Do you want to be explicit about that? Look, because they've been found guilty in American courts. I know the courts you don't like, but they've been found guilty in American courts.
After the fourth time of trying them.
Okay, they've been found guilty in an American court.
And we had numerous other incidents where there was a shooting and we were accused, and when
in Nassau Square, do you believe your men did anything wrong?
And when law enforcement authorities viewed the tapes, there was no problem.
Do you believe in Nassau Square your men did anything wrong? It's a very simple question.
In hindsight, sure. If it's an innocent civilian, every innocent civilian that's killed is a tragedy, is a horror, and we tried very hard to avoid that. That's why 41 men died doing that mission, shielding other people from enemy bullets who were trying to kill them and slaughter them or hang them from a bridge and burn them.
Okay, we can take some more questions. Lady there with her hand up. Do you wait for the microphone to come?
And see, let me address what he's talking about, because see, this further shows you the incompetence and how incompetence in this situation is deadly. Erik Prince, if you got accurate intel, you get them people out of harm's way before it even comes to that. You see, this is why, man, don't say it. Don't say it. I almost said something, boy. This is why you don't send these cockroaches to do what professionals should be doing, okay? And shame on the entire United States government, Department of Defense, for not paying the professionals in the special forces what you pay these damn mercenaries. That should go to them, okay? That really should. But, that's a whole nother conversation for another day. I digress, which is another reason why I do not encourage young black men and women especially to go into any branch of the armed services. I couldn't do it in good conscience. I never will. In fact, I'm going to have a broadcast coming up that's going to underscore why I keep saying that. Because, see, when you know certain things, you can't act like you don't know them, okay? When you know certain things, you can't act like you don't know. And I'm going to make that plain in the upcoming broadcast. But like I said, man, y'all hear it for yourself tonight. And before I let this continue, I'm going to check the temperature real quick. Ladies and gentlemen, so far what I've shown you over here, does anybody find Erik Prince to be a trustworthy individual or a competent, intelligent individual? Does he strike anybody over here in my chat room as either of those things I just mentioned? I want to wait and see. Give your honest answers, no judgment. I just want to see, does anybody here think that you're hearing a trustworthy, honest person and a very capable, intelligent person as far as any type of military operations? I just want to check, okay? I'm going to let it continue while I watch y'all give y'all responses.
Yes, I was a U.S. television journalist in Iraq during and after the invasion. I saw Blackwater people humiliate and terrorize Iraqis. They were hostile to journalists and they were hostile to NGOs. Why should you get a contract to do the same thing in Afghanistan?
How did you, first of all, how did you know that they were Blackwater personnel?
Oh, because they very, very clearly, walking around, not just driving cars, walking around, they were Blackwater. As journalists, we knew who Blackwater was. They let us know they were not soldiers, they were Blackwater. It's very easy to tell.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, there was hundreds and hundreds of companies employing U.S., NATO, and other country veterans.
The difference between Blackwater and NATO. I'm sorry, but
she's absolutely right. That white woman is telling the truth. And see, I'm going to tell you another reason we can't stand these bastards. One of the things that you want to be able to do if you're in any type of special warfare unit, okay, special operations division, when you're abroad, you want to blend in. You don't want to stand out like a sore thumb. Now, there'll be certain things where, depending on what gear you have, you might have no choice. But that's usually in an active theater of combat. But if you're away from the theater of combat, the goal is to be inconspicuous. And another thing, too, why that's what professionals prefer to do. If you walking around, in full gear all the time, okay, in like a non-active zone. Now, let me be clear on that. Shit can go from 0 to 60 any second if you're in certain hostile territories. But if you're in a place that you got pretty much secure, then you walk around in a way that tries to put the people at ease that you want to gain the trust of. You see what I'm saying? If you walking around like that makes them feel like, okay, this is an oppressive force that's sitting on my neck here. And even though they're supposed to be able to help us, can we really trust them like that? So basically what she's describing is, yeah, you can tell them jackasses, because these are the guys that have the damn Call of Duty fantasy in their head. Like I said, they are, boy, and when you see them coming anywhere, and Lord knows, I feel for anybody that's enlisted now, y'all feel me on that. You like, oh, here they come, boy. They fuck up everything. So she's not lying on that. I can verify everything that she's saying. She's absolutely correct.
Very easy to tell.
I don't think you're that sharp that you can tell the difference between a Polish guy, a French guy, or a Canadian guy.
Do you think you're that sharp to tell the difference?
Well,
okay, sure. All right. Before this gets out of hand, we'll go back.
Absolutely.
You guys aren't going to agree. You're not going to agree. Before this gets out of hand, we'll carry on with the audience. We'll go to this gentleman with the tie and the suit.
So Afghanistan been in war since 2001 and fighting 20 international terrorist groups. Since 2014, the Afghan National Security Forces has been doing this by themselves. So how do you justify that you will get a contract and go and do the war in Afghanistan, given that you're making money out of this business and you'll ever want to conclude this business there? And one point, please do us a favor and have a bold line between mercenaries of death and democracy, and it's totally up to the people of Afghanistan to decide who is their next president. Thank you.
Can I just ask, are you Afghan yourself?
Yes.
And you believe that Afghans don't want?
Never.
More?
Like, that's definitely never.
Okay, but deal with the first question about, you
fair.
have a self-interest in perpetuating the conflict because you get paid.
Here's the thing. Of the $62 billion, right now the U.S. spends $5 billion supporting the Afghan security forces. $57 billion is the cost of U.S. presence there. That's going away, okay? The support for the Afghan security forces, the airlift, the medevac, which is wholly inadequate right now because Afghan soldiers are dying at a rate of 30 and 40 per day. If there's not a skeletal support provided to them, Ashraf Ghani himself said the Afghan forces will collapse in less than 6 months. I say it's more like 6 weeks, okay? So there has to be some kind of capability to keep the Afghan security forces upright and able to function so that Afghanistan can actually have a free election and they should be totally free to choose their next leader. I agree.
Eric, let me ask you this. Despite all the things you and Blackwater have been accused of, some of which we've discussed tonight, but there's so much more, you said in 2007, quote, "I sleep the sleep of the just. I'm not feeling guilty." Just wondering, is that still the case today? You still have no regrets, no guilt, no ruined sleep at all over all those innocent lives taken by Blackwater employees? None?
Look, the fact is the company did what it was asked to. It was asked to protect. We saved thousands and thousands of people. We saved many, many wounded U.S. soldiers well beyond the scope of the contract. Okay, we did what we were asked. Any injury, any civilian that's injured in a car crash, or an accidental
shot in the
shooting.
head, or 9-year-old children shot in the head.
Correct. And since long after Blackwater was involved, 110,000 Iraqi civilians have been killed in that same conflict by ISIS, by incompetent government.
So when I have George Bush on the show, I'll ask about his sleep. I'm asking about the people your guys killed. Does it keep you awake at night?
We were asked to do a job, and we performed very, very well.
We'll have to leave it there. Thanks to our audience here in the Oxford Union. Thanks to our panel of experts who've come tonight. And thanks to Erik Prince for joining me on Head to Head. That's our show. Head to Head will be back next week. Thank you. Thanks so
much. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You saw firsthand and out of that lying serpent's own mouth his statements about in 2024, at the beginning of the broadcast, going to colonize present-day African nations, and we dug in the crates to show you further what a lying, disgusting, deceitful bag of dog shit Erik Prince and that organization, Blackwater Academy, whatever you want to call it today, is, okay? Let me say this to my fellow foundational Black American freedmen brothers and sisters. This was a classic case study on how white supremacist governments and operatives think and operate as far as being deceitful. I want you to study that and play this back and take notes about the things that you heard him say and the responses that he gave when he was asked questions, and pay close attention to, this is very important, the body language that you saw him using when he was telling them bold-faced lies, when the reporter clearly had transcripts of things that he said. And for those of you that are continental Africans, Caribbeans, you better take this and study it. Get the book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Get the books that were mentioned in this broadcast by the other reporter that was questioning him. Make sure you study those things so that you can operate by this old adage that will put you in an advantageous position more often than not. Forewarned is forearmed. But that's it. Thank you to everybody that contributed to the broadcast. Definitely check Patreon if you're subscribed over there. In about 10 minutes or so, maybe sooner, I'm going to find that clip of one of those operatives talking about what they did over there. And I'm going to give you a disclaimer, caution again. It's going to turn your stomach, especially if you got children. But I want my people to know the truth, and I definitely couldn't post that over here on YouTube. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to take care of yourselves. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Black first, salute, and I will see you all in future content.
It's the 50th anniversary of hip-hop, and we still have a lot of discrepancies as far as the origins of hip-hop, a lot of claims, who did what, who was the first this, who was the this and that, and such. But at the end of the day, we need a definitive story, all right? And that story can only be told by the founders of this culture.
Like everything was being driven and influenced by young, black, American culture. Like the slang, the style of dress, the initial music that we chose.
You look at all the boroughs, you got, Money Making Manhattan and Money Earning Mount Vernon and Crooklyn. The Bronx was the boogie down Bronx. We was partying up there.
I am Coke LaRock, the first MC of hip hop. First cat to pick the mic up.
I introduced rapping to the turntable because when I came with it, nobody in the world was doing it. I'm right after Rudy Ray Moore.
They want to come in the mix. They want to say, we started. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. What came to be known as hip hop was solely an African-American creation.
What would you get out of some Jamaican toast? What is that? I've never heard of a rapper use a Jamaican toast or a Jamaican fleur as a rhyme. I'd never heard of it, and I don't know where that myth came from.
My name is legendary King Trixie from the Bronx, BX from the West Side. I am the first break dancer.
And that narrative that hip hop has had 3 founding fathers, that's been rolling for the last almost 30 years, which isn't true. You don't have just 3 people who created hip hop. Hip hop was created by a number of different people.
I am the grandfather, the godfather of the graffiti culture. I am the first element of hip hop.
The roots of hip hop being Jamaican, absolutely false.
My name is MC Sha-Rock. I am a founding member of the MC/rap culture.
Cassette tapes was the internet of our time. It just traveled around by hand.
I know for a fact that the B-boy stance started from the guards, the 5 percenters that would be at the jams back in the days who were acting as security.
If they get the real truth of how it all was created, then so many lies would not be able to be in existence.
So when we talk about hip hop and what it is, it's an extension of the music and the instrumentation that our forefathers created.
Check out the live stream premiere of the documentary short, It's Bigger Than Hip Hop, The Black American Family Tree, and Q&A, a fundraiser to create a series detailing music's evolution. Go to DewanB.com for streaming passes and crowdfunding.